Chapter 268. As Gu Fei walked towards the direction Shi Xiaotian mentioned, he sent a message in the channel. The last person isn't at the place you mentioned. I know where she is. I'll go and settle her. Her. A girl. Everyone had their own strengths. Just from this small detail, unscathed in battle and Yutian Shenming's thinking and reaction were much sharper than Han family young masters. Ah. Gu Fei answered vaguely. Is she a beauty? The two of them jumped and asked. Yes. Gu Fei had to admit this. Where is she? Where is she? The two of them shouted. When Gu Fei reported the coordinates, Yutian Shenming laughed wildly. Unscathed in battle, can you be faster than me? Damn it, stop arguing. Keep the channel clean. Han family young master said. It was a typical example of using common interests to suppress private interests. They had already fought to this point, why did they still need to keep the channel clean? Are you sure that person is at the place you mentioned? Han family young master asked. To be honest, the other person's coordinates were actually on the diagonal of his judgment. Such a deviation made this narcissist feel embarrassed. This. Han family young master said this, Gu Fei hesitated. He was right. What kind of person was Shi Xiaotian? A liar girl. What if this was a conspiracy? Moreover, the competition participants had already given him a hint, she would be very despicable. I shouldn't believe her so easily. Sword demon, you should go to the forest I mentioned. Han family young master could tell that Gu Fei wasn't sure. Okay. Sword demon nodded and left. At this moment, Han family young master finally stopped drinking. He picked up the bottle and stood up. He went to the coordinates Gu Fei mentioned and looked into the distance. He was startled. Aya, there's no need to go. The person is really here. The coordinates are exactly the same as what Qianli just said the Han family young master. Brother Yu was also beside the Han family young master. When he saw the person standing on the map, he immediately confirmed it. Oh, then I'll head over, Gu Fei said as he headed in the direction of the coordinates. I'll go too. Yutian Shenming also didn't want to miss the opportunity to see the beauty's face. Qianli, will you show mercy to beautiful women? Unscathed in battle asked pitifully. I won't, Gu Fei said firmly. Sigh, then I'm not going. Unscathed in battle had expected this answer. He had seen how merciless Gu Fei was when he fought against the reborn amethyst. This PvP maniac probably wouldn't understand something as elegant as showing mercy to the fairer sex. You guys go. I'll keep you updated on the person's movements, said the Han family young master as he sat down on the ground again. He held the bottle and prepared to use his coordinates ability. However, the person just stood there and didn't move at all. The Han family young master felt like he had nowhere to use his commanding talent. On the map, Gu Fei was heading in that direction. Divine Cry's journey was rather tortuous. One moment it was east, the next moment it was west, the next moment it was north, and the next moment it was south. Finally, it cried out in the channel, I can't find the coordinates. Ha ha ha, you idiot with no sense of direction. You still want to see beautiful women? Die in that sinful forest. Unscathed in battle was very happy. Gongzi, help me. Point me in a direction, shouted Yutian Shenming. Forget it. Qianli is already here. He'll take care of his opponent in 2 seconds. Just rest here. The Han family young master was too lazy to guide him. It was extremely troublesome to guide Yutian Shenming. Previously, when he guided the three of them to intercept, he only needed to give Gu Fei and the sword demon the coordinates, and they would go there themselves. On the other hand, Yutian Shenming had to guide the Han family young master step by step. In the end, he just randomly pointed him in a direction and let him run in a straight line, then collide with the enemy. Since Yutian Shenming had the eyesight of an eagle, he didn't have to worry about not being able to find his opponent. On the empty ground at coordinates 398,137, Shi Xiaotian just sat there without moving. She kept watching Gu Fei from afar. When he was 3 meters in front of her, Gu Fei stopped and looked at her with great vigilance. Coming. Shi Xiaotian didn't think much of it and stood up from the ground. You're alone. What's the point of fighting? Just back off, said Gu Fei. Although the points wouldn't be counted to the winner's head, the overall score would still be counted as perfect. What? You don't dare to fight with me? Shi Xiaotian waved her fist. Her hand was wrapped in bandages, like a boxer. If Gu Fei remembered correctly, this girl's class should be an archer. Are you sure you want to fight with me? You know that I'm very heavy-handed. Gu Fei reminded. When the two of them first met, Gu Fei had stabbed Shi Xiaotian with a flying dagger, causing him to bleed profusely. That was the most serious injury Gu Fei had ever dealt in the game. After that, he had fought countless players, but he had never seen such an injury. It was unknown whether it was because the players were low level and had poor equipment, so they were very fragile and easily injured, or if the game company felt that the damage was too realistic and secretly adjusted it. But to be fair, as a game, it was a bit exaggerated to make the injuries so realistic. The theme of the game was always combat. Players leveled up every day, fought quests, and PvP battles. Every day, they were cut into pieces. If the damage was really so realistic, was this a game or a death by 1,000 cuts? Don't worry, I have a lot of experience being killed. What haven't I seen before, said Shi Xiaotian. If that's the case. Gu Fei finally unsheathed his sword. He had never planned to go easy on anyone, but when it came to Shi Xiaotian, he had a feeling that this girl was scheming something. Teleportation, move. Gu Fei finished chanting with a quick movement of his lips. Only he and the system could hear his voice. This was a pronunciation technique that all the expert mages had mastered. There was a rumor that players who were mages from a parallel world could sing in karaoke very clearly, no matter how low it was. The moment he disappeared, Gu Fei had already flashed behind Shi Xiaotian. However, this girl was indeed someone who was often chased by others. She seemed to have sensed the approaching danger, and had already started to dodge to the side. At the same time, she happily turned around and shouted, "Ha! You fell into my trap." She didn't finish her sentence because she saw Gu Fei's sword poking into the ground behind her. The trap she had placed there had indeed popped up, but it was clipped onto Gu Fei's sword. Gu Fei was also smiling at her. "The number of times you've died definitely can't compare to the number of times I've killed people." As he said this, he picked up his sword and wiped off the trap clip. "Just based on the fact that you're level 40, what rich experience of being killed." "You're lying again, aren't you?" said Gu Fei. "TSK, you saw through me again." Shi Xiaotian was still quite calm. "Your movements are very slow. I remember that you used to be very agile." "How did you become so slow?" said Gu Fei. "You can tell with just 2 steps, exclaimed Shi Xiaotian. "Of course, I'm a professional," said Gu Fei. "You really are amazing. Even more amazing than the legends say." Shi Xiaotian sighed. "You flatter me. What kind of trick are you trying to pull?" Gu Fei felt that there was more and more to this. Shi Xiaotian couldn't have called him over just because she thought that the trap behind her would be enough to take him down, right? Even if Gu Fei had stepped on the trap, this hunting trap only restricted movement. Those who fell into the trap could still attack. Just based on how slow Shi Xiaotian had been dodging, Gu Fei felt that 2 slashes would be enough. "Hee, why don't you guess?" Shi Xiaotian said with a smile. "Forget it. It's getting late, let's end this." Gu Fei raised his long sword and suddenly dashed in front of Shi Xiaotian. Shi Xiaotian wanted to dodge, but her movements were really slow today. Gu Fei didn't want to guess anymore. He silently chanted, "Dual flame flash," and very seriously slashed down, not leaving any room for maneuver. White light. Gu Fei had never seen an archer that couldn't be instantly killed after using dual flame flash. Shi Xiaotian was no exception. But almost at the same time, Gu Fei suddenly felt that the range of the white light was expanding, and in a flash, it had already enveloped him. What was going on? Gu Fei was shocked to find that his HP had already rapidly dropped to 0. In the white light, Shi Xiaotian made a pistol with her right hand and pointed it at Gu Fei. She closed her eyes and took aim. Baiu, Shi Xiaotian disappeared. Gu Fei also disappeared with a stomach full of doubt and confusion. The last 5 people on the map received this notification at the same time and were all startled. What kind of witch is this? She actually died together with our General Qianli? Unscathed in battle exclaimed. Gongzi, what did you guys see on the mountain? Sword Demon was also very surprised. With Gu Fei's skills, 10 people were all dead. Who could actually single-handedly kill Gu Fei? Although the other party also died, it was definitely a very impressive achievement. Han family young master and brother Yu also looked at each other. Frankly speaking, the two of them were just chatting and didn't look in that direction carefully, so they didn't notice any movement at all. From what Qianli said, that person knew him, right? Was it because of this that he was plotted against? Brother, you guessed. Fuck. Han family young master threw the wine bottle down the mountain. The system had already started to calculate the results. Because of Gu Fei's death, it was obvious that child elite group wouldn't be able to get perfect. Brother Yu saw that Han family young master seemed to be very unhappy and quickly comforted him. It's okay. The rules of the system said that perfect only affects ordinary experience and monetary rewards. The other rewards are completely unaffected by a perfect. Han family young master seemed to not hear Brother Yu's words. Looking at the direction where the 2 people disappeared, he said angrily, "Too useless, dropping the ball at such a crucial moment." Chapter 269. At the end of every match, the system would do some calculations, and the winner who stayed in the map would not be teleported out of the map. Although the Black Hand mercenary group had already completed the map, the people at the teleportation point had already left. They were not in the mood to stay and admire the faces of the winners. At this time, the teleportation point outside the mercenary building was empty. Gu Fei was teleported there, and he immediately saw Shi Xiaotian on the other side of the teleportation point. At this time, the system had already announced the final result. Naturally, it was Child Elite Group's victory. However, the perfect broadcast that the Black Hand mercenary group thought would tie them to the pillar of shame did not come. The Black Hand mercenary group was shocked. They quickly looked through the system and finally found the final result. Child Elite Group, 87 points, Black Hand mercenary group, 1 point. One of them died. The Black Hand mercenary group couldn't believe it. This was because after the Black Index Finger gave the order to disperse and delay, the speed at which their members were cleared out did not slow down at all. At that time, the entire group was already at their limit in disappointment. In the end, they did not wait outside the arena for any results and left dejectedly. At this time, they actually killed one of their opponents. The Black Index Finger was very satisfied with this result. He shouted in the channel, "Who was it? Who killed one of them? Who killed who?" No one made a sound. What's going on? Is it popular to do a good deed without leaving a name? The Black Index Finger scolded with a smile. He only knew that when they were down to 21 people, the opponents still maintained the perfect hope. The person who killed one of them could only be one of these 21 people. But who were these 21 people? The Black Index Finger had no idea. At the same time, he was very curious. This was a good thing. Why didn't anyone find out? There was a lot of discussion in the channel. There were all kinds of guesses. In the end, they came to the conclusion that someone from the opponent accidentally rolled down the mountain and died. In the past, such a strange way of dying would definitely not be convincing. However, in today's match, a few members of the Black Hand mercenary group had died in such a cowardly way. In the end, the opponent did not get the perfect hope because of such a cowardly way. Retribution. everyone said in the channel. At this moment, the 5 members of the child elite group were also teleported out of the map. They were surprised to see that the outside was so quiet, but they had no time to care about others. The Han family young master looked around. Qianli, where the hell did you go? When he didn't see anyone, he quickly sent another message. Wait, I have something to do. Gu Fei replied. I'll wait for you in the tavern. The Han family young master said coldly and left with a dark face. Isn't your reaction a little too big? Yutian Shinming was a little surprised. They felt a little regretful that they didn't get a perfect score, but that was all. It was already a miracle for a 6-man team to win against 87 people. How could they ask for more? Young master is really a perfectionist. Brother, you sighed. A man who is never content is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. Unscathed in battle said. Sword demon, talk to him. Yutian Shinming said to the sword demon. Let's go to the tavern first. Sword demon said calmly. At this moment, Gu Fei wasn't far from the teleportation circle. He just followed Shi Xiaotian to the street next door. What happened? How did I die? Gu Fei couldn't wait any longer. He had pondered this question 180 times along the way. He had considered all the details. He was sure that Shi Xiaotian didn't do anything strange at that time. He also didn't receive any attacks, be it from the sky or from underground. How did I die? He had chased Shi Xiaotian for almost 180 times. Damage reflection. Shi Xiaotian dragged him all the way to the other side of the street before answering his question. Damage reflection? What does that mean? Gu Fei asked. Haven't you played online games before? You don't even understand this. Shi Xiaotian rolled his eyes. Well, this is the first time. Gu Fei confessed. Shi Xiaotian didn't have a temper. He couldn't help but give Gu Fei a lesson. The reason is very simple. I'm wearing damage reflection equipment. The total reflection rate is 32% and the degree of reflection is 47%. In other words, when you attack me, there is a 32% chance of triggering this damage reflection. After the damage reflection occurs, 47% of the damage caused by your attack will be reflected back to you. This 47% damage ignores defense and resistance. So, you were killed by yourself, expert. Oh. Gu Fei understood. It was actually such a simple reason. As for his own damage, Gu Fei roughly calculated the sum of his equipment, skills, and attributes. 47% was enough to kill him. Gu Fei's HP was very low. He didn't have any equipment that increased his HP. He was worse than any mage. Wait, that's not right. Gu Fei had played the game for a long time. He still had some knowledge. If I killed you, it means that my overall damage is above your HP. Then, the damage I dealt to you isn't my overall damage, but your HP. You're an archer. Your HP should be about the same as a mage's. How can my HP be 47% of yours? Sorry, this archer added points to all of his HP, Shi Xiaotian said. All of his HP. Gu Fei was surprised. In the end, he came back to his senses. No wonder your movements are so slow. Well, I didn't think that all of my HP couldn't even take one hit from you. Your high magic damage really isn't just for show. But if you were a heavy warrior or a priest, you might be able to survive. Then, the one who died would be you. Shi Xiaotian said. Hey, you added points to all of your HP and equipment. Are you specifically targeting me? Gu Fei said. Of course I'm targeting you. Waha, the legendary #1 expert in Cloud City still lost to me, an invincible liar. Shi Xiaotian said proudly. Don't be so bad. This tone made Gu Fei think of a certain someone. He then said, also, I didn't lose. Don't forget that you were also insta-killed. At most, we both died. It's a draw. What, still not convinced? Do you want to try again? Shi Xiaotian stood up straight. Okay. Gu Fei also raised his sword. Are you serious? If you die now, you'll lose a level. Aren't you afraid? Shi Xiaotian was puzzled. Liar, pay attention. The reflex rate is 32%, right? That means I have a 68% chance of winning and a 32% chance of dying together. Your chance of winning is 0. Your chance of dying is 100%. Gu Fei said. That's exactly what I want. I was thinking that adding points like this can't be trained anymore. I'm going to drop a level and level up again. Shi Xiaotian said, hurry up and use your incomparably rich experience to kill me. Gu Fei frowned and suddenly said, did you make some kind of enemy? Are you going to use this method to die together with someone? No way. You saw through me. Shi Xiaotian was shocked. You're really despicable. If you want to kill someone, you have to do it like me. Gu Fei drew a flower with his sword and put it back into his pocket. I have my own way. Shi Xiaotian said indifferently. Then I wish you good luck. Gu Fei was already preparing to leave. Next time, remember to use appraisal first. Be careful of being reflected to death. Shi Xiaotian sneered. Gu Fei nodded. I just don't know how many people will use this method. With that, Gu Fei turned and left. The people from Child Elite Group were still waiting for him in Little Ray's bar. There will be. Shi Xiaotian muttered softly as he looked at Gu Fei's back. Little Ray's bar. The moment Gu Fei entered, he was seen by Little Ray. He greeted him and softly said, congratulations. Although there was no special broadcast, it was still the finals. The system had just announced the final results of the mercenary competition. In Cloud City, Child Elite Group was in first place, Black Hand Mercenary Group was in second place, and Waterflower Mercenary Group was in third place. The whole city was naturally in an uproar. They really didn't think that the young noble elite group, a small group of 6 people, would be so dark to the end. Moreover, they were quite strong. Cloud City's famous and strong groups were almost all killed by them. When Gu Fei walked past the table in the bar, he already heard players discussing this matter. After all, this was also an achievement that Gu Fei had painstakingly killed, so he was quite pleased. As soon as he entered the private room, he saw Han family young master's dark face. It was obvious that he was dissatisfied, very dissatisfied. What's wrong with you? How can you not keep your integrity in your old age? Before Gu Fei could sit down, Han family young master was already roaring. Of course, he was roaring in a low voice. The private room that Little Ray made had no soundproofing. Calm down, you must calm down. Yutian Shinming and Unscathed in Battle were actually trying to calm him down. This made Gu Fei very surprised. Normally, if this kind of thing happened, these 2 guys would definitely be gloating and watching the show. How many times have I said it, we must be united. Unscathed in Battle said sincerely. Coupled with his mature appearance, it was actually quite convincing. Yes, that's right, especially at a time like this. Yutian Shinming said. When he saw that Gu Fei was about to open his mouth, he hurriedly stopped him. Qianli, sit properly and listen to Gongzi's words. Yes, Gongzi, look, Qianli has already admitted his mistake. Moreover, his attitude is very good. Don't get angry. It doesn't matter if you get angry, but if you accidentally disband the mercenary group at this time, then it will be troublesome. Unscathed in Battle said seriously. Yes, the final reward hasn't been given yet. We can't disband at this time. Yutian Shinming said. Chapter 270. The system announced that the reward would be given out after the guild competition, so the mercenary groups that finished the competition first had time to disband. After all this time, these 2 bastards were worried about this. Han family young master didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He couldn't let out his anger, so he looked at Gu Fei and started to speak earnestly. Do you know? Han family young master said gently, because of you, we lost the chance to get perfect. Because we didn't get perfect, we lost the chance to release a perfect broadcast to humiliate these guys. What bullshit #1 guild in Cloud City, I'm the #1 guild in Cloud City. No, I'm the #1 guild in the parallel world. Wahahaha. Han family young master's voice got louder and louder, and he started to laugh crazily. Gu Fei realized, you drank too much. Brother, you nodded, I drank a lot during the competition. He recalled the empty beer bottles stacked high on the highest peak of the map of the finals. It was dazzling under the sunlight. Drank too much? Why didn't I notice? Unscathed in battle was still confused. Damn, you can't even tell the difference between a guild and a mercenary group, and you say you didn't drink too much? Are we a guild? Gu Fei also started to scold. Sometimes, idiots could really make people angry. Oh. Unscathed in battle realized that Han family young master did shout that he was the #1 guild in the parallel world. Sigh. Sword Demon sighed and didn't say anything. As expected of an old friend, he could tell that Han family young master drank too much. Qianli, what's going on? Brother, you finally asked this question. Everyone was actually confused. It's damage reflect. Gu Fei said. Oh. The experts sighed. Of course, they knew what was going on when they heard it. Sad. So sad. Han family young master suddenly started to lecture again, everyone here, aren't you all top experts? Damage reflect. You guys didn't even think of something that could counter classes with high damage but low HP, aren't you ashamed? Why didn't anyone warn us beforehand? Han family young master slammed the table. You didn't expect it either, did you? Yutian Shinming couldn't help but ask. Me? The Han family young master squinted at him. Would someone as pure and noble as me think of such a despicable thing? The Han family young master asked back in an extremely forceful manner. Everyone couldn't stand it anymore. I really have to give it to you. You're so narcissistic when you're drunk. Sword Demon, when will you wake up? Gu Fei asked Sword Demon. After a moment of silence, the Sword Demon said, it's about time. Actually, it's not a big deal to be in this state. It's just that you're a bit talkative when you can discuss things. Brother, you continued, damage reflection. I've never seen this type of equipment in the parallel world. Have you seen him before? Everyone shook their heads. This type of equipment is definitely based on probability and degree, just like fatal damage. Usually, you have to gather all of them in order to be effective. If the probability and degree aren't high, it'll be very useless. Moreover, in order to increase the effect of damage reflection, your own defense will usually be very low. In other words, you'll put yourself in a very dangerous situation first. In addition, there are currently no potions in the parallel world to recover from battles. It can be said that it's absolutely impossible to survive alone, brother, you analyzed. Moreover, Unscathed in battle began to add, this type of equipment is very boring. To deal with the enemy has to attack you first. If it's a PK, wouldn't it be over if the enemy doesn't attack you? Therefore, you can only play dirty once without the enemy knowing. Once you've done it, you won't have a second chance. But in the parallel world, there's appraisal art that can appraise the opponent's equipment. What use do you think this type of equipment is? Speaking of which, Qianli, you don't use appraisal art much, right? Yutian Shinming suddenly remembered. Never, Gu Fei said. He had practiced appraisal art for a while, but now he had abandoned it. The few experts looked at each other and shouted in unison, that's fucking dangerous. You have to change such a bad habit. Unscathed in battle said earnestly again. Yes. If your opponent knew that you have a bad habit of not using appraisal art, I'm afraid they would have used a set of damage reflection equipment to kill you. Yutian Shinming grumbled. Hey, Speaking of which, if the person who killed you today had such a trick, why didn't he deal with you earlier? Why did he hide until the end? Unscathed in battle was suddenly puzzled. Didn't Qianli and the other party know each other? That's why he did them a favor. Yutian Shinming suddenly beamed with joy. Which beauty is it? Have I seen her before? Gu Fei glared at him but did not say anything. On the other side, Brother Yu said again, if he wanted to do them a favor, he could have just left after the battle ended. Why did he call Qianli over? Oh, he probably wanted to use that opportunity to experiment on me. He wanted to use this method to trick others, Gu Fei explained. The Han family young master, who had been silent for a long time and seemed to be dozing off, suddenly snorted. He did not even lift his head as he said coldly, apart from you, idiot, is there anyone else who doesn't use appraisal art before a PK? Yes, that's right. Unscathed in battle immediately agreed. Didn't I say it just now? This method is too passive, so it can only be used for a sneak attack. However, under the setting of appraisal art in the parallel world, this kind of equipment basically has no PK value, so no one will use it for PK, that's not it. Even if Qianli has the habit of using appraisal art, it's impossible for him to appraise one by one when he uses an area of effect spell. When he uses an area of effect spell, voila, Qianli will be dead. Yutian Shinming even used onomatopoeia when he spoke. That's not right, right? Reflected damage is usually reflected by close-range attacks. Unscathed in battle said. That depends on the setting of each game. Brother Yu said. Yes, the XXX game I used to play also has a reflection effect on long-range attacks. Yutian Shinming listed a game. What about in the parallel world? Does it have it or not? No, Brother Yu said. The two of them were suspicious. You haven't seen any equipment with a reflection effect either, right? Brother Yu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I haven't seen any equipment before, but I know about the setting regarding reflection. It has no effect on long-range attacks. Oh, no wonder Qianli can live until today. Yutian Shinming said. TSK, you have to be careful in the future, Qianli. Maybe one of your enemies will find out that you have a habit of not using appraisal art. They will definitely use this method to harm you. Unscathed in battle said. Could it be that the beauty in today's mercenary battle was specifically here to warn Qianli about this? Imperial God Ming exclaimed. So loyal and righteous. Is it really that melodramatic? Unscathed in battle also exclaimed. The few of them looked at Gu Fei. Idiot. If you really wanted to remind him, just say it. Do you really have to go through all this trouble? Han family young master suddenly said. Right. Unscathed in battle and Yutian Shinming nodded. Unless. Han family young master didn't finish his sentence. Unless what? The two of them asked immediately. Unless she's afraid that you won't believe her words, Han family young master said. Then she'll put on another show. Wow, it's even more melodramatic than before. No way. Unscathed in battle and Yutian Shinming shook their heads. Gu Fei was also in a trance. These two, one old and one young, were quarreling here and there, and this young master of the Han family was even half drunk and half sober. From time to time, he would come up with a sentence like a ghost, analyzing the ins and outs of the matter clearly and logically. Did this liar god really want to remind me about this? Oh, Yang Ming recalled that before he left, the fella seemed to have told him to remember to use appraisal art in the future. Although he said it in a mocking tone, according to young Master Han's train of thought, the mocking tone matched the situation. However, just as Unscathed in battle and Yutian Shinming complained, this was too melodramatic. This fellow was really bored. Gu Fei was a straightforward person. Since he had doubts, he immediately opened his friend list and was about to send a message, but Shi Xiaotian had already gone offline. The hour hand had just passed 9 o'clock, and the finals of the guild battle had begun. This also meant that the mercenary competition had ended. The students of the Ultimate Class 3 immediately sent in messages. Teacher, which group are you in? Child Elite Group. Don't you know? Ah. First place. That's amazing. The students exclaimed. Teacher, let us join your mercenary group too. Someone requested. Go, go, go. What's the point of adding such a messy group? Gu Fei reprimanded. He turned around and looked at his group members. Han family young master had a bad personality, was narcissistic, and drank too much. Unscathed in battle and Yutian Shinming were old and frivolous, while the other was young and inexperienced. Brother Yu was cautious, but he was always worried about this and that. He didn't know if it was Brother Yu or Brother Worry. Sword Demon was reliable in terms of character, but he was obviously the most addicted to online games. He wasn't a good role model for the students. As expected, he was a pile of trash. Gu Fei sighed. He didn't analyze himself. He was a PvP maniac, and he brought more trouble to the other players than these 5. Just look at the frightened expressions on the faces of the players in Cloud City with a bit of PK value. The 6 of them were sitting in the private room of the tavern, waiting for the end of the guild battle. The system said that the rewards would be given out at that time. What would it be? They guessed excitedly. Not long after, Han family young master sobered up, but Yutian Shinming was drunk. The little brat didn't have much alcohol tolerance, but he was still quite obedient when drunk. He fell asleep on the wall of the private room. Yutian, you're too careless. How could you fall asleep at such a crucial time? Unscathed in battle snickered. Time ticked by, and finally, the system broadcast rang out once more. The results of the guild tournament were out. First place was unsurprisingly Reigning the World, second place was Iron Armored Guild, and third place was First Light of the Lanterns. Gu Fei had never heard of any of them before. The rewards are coming. Unscathed in battle grabbed Gu Fei excitedly. His usual playmate, Yutian Shinming, was still asleep. Chapter 271. Yutian, Yutian, wake up. Gu Fei was kind and honest. He ignored Unscathed in battle's obstruction and forcefully woke Yutian Shinming up. Ah, what's wrong? Yutian Shinming's eyes were still drowsy. It's time to give out the rewards. The guild war is over. Gu Fei said. Yeah. Yutian Shinming was instantly energized and jumped up in joy. Everyone looked at him with a smile. Suddenly, Yutian Shinming's face changed and turned pale. He no longer had the energy to cheer and looked like he had lost his soul. I didn't go to the finals of the guild war. Everyone's faces changed and they looked at each other. Only Unscathed in battle buried his head in his arms and had a sneaky smile on his face. Yutian Shinming didn't even have the ability to organize his words. I really did forget about that. Brother Yu said quietly. Sigh. Sword Demon sighed deeply. You shouldn't have forgotten. Gu Fei said. Yutian Shinming had fought his way through the 2 competitions. After the mercenary war, the guild war would be the next. He should have been used to it. Han family young master analyzed, he hasn't competed in 3 days. Also, he was too excited about the rewards. Also, he still needs to train his alcohol tolerance. Does the rules say that there won't be any special rewards if he doesn't show up? Sword Demon asked Brother Yu in a small voice. He was afraid that his voice would agitate Yutian Shinming. Of course. Why else would he arrange it on the weekend? Brother Yu also replied in a small voice. Yutian Shinming still stood like a statue with his hands clenched into fists. He was as terrifying as a silent lamb. Unscathed in battle was so happy that his shoulders were shaking. Gu Fei kicked him and said, You remember, right? Why didn't you remind me? This is too much. Unscathed in battle raised his head in surprise. Then, he quickly raised his hand and said, I swear to God, I really don't remember this. Of course, I'm happy that I don't remember. Yutian, I'm happy for you too. Fuck. Everyone despised this unscrupulous fellow. Sit down, sit down. Brother Yu pulled the wooden Yutian Shinming to sit down. Sigh. Sword Demon was sitting on the other side of Yutian Shinming. Obviously, he was usually quiet and not good at comforting people. Ah, they're announcing the reward rules. Brother Yu suddenly shouted. Everyone's attention was focused on the system notification, and Yutian Shinming also recovered a little. The first to be announced was the reward for the mercenary group competition. First was the third place, a total of 6 random rewards. 3 of them would be directly sent to the pockets of the outstanding mercenary group competition participants according to the system's statistics. The other 3 would be placed in the mercenary building and distributed freely by the team. Additional experience and monetary rewards. Second place, 8 random rewards. 4 to be distributed by the system, 4 to be distributed freely. Additional experience and monetary rewards. First place, 10 random rewards. 5 to be distributed by the system, 5 to be distributed freely. Additional experience and monetary rewards. The system announcement was made to the entire server. The rewards were the most enticing part of the game. Announcing the rewards was both an announcement and a way to stimulate the passion of all players. How could the system secretly do such a good job? The players in the parallel world were all listening to the rules. After listening, the players in Cloud City had the biggest reaction. Was there a need to explain the reason? All the players in Cloud City now knew that their number 1 mercenary group, Child Elite Group, only had a total of 6 people. After the 6 of them split 1 reward, 4 of them could each get 2 rewards. As for the other main cities, there wasn't such a miracle. Most of the mercenary groups were level 5 mercenary groups, and the worst ones were level 3 mercenary groups. There were 60 of them, and even with 10 rewards, there wasn't enough. To the young master elite group, this kind of reward was a huge advantage. Damn, that's awesome. Unscathed in battle slammed the table and wanted to find someone to give him a high five. However, it was Gu Fei next to him, and Han family young master opposite him. They were both staring at him coldly. Unscathed in battle embarrassedly sat back down. Immediately after, the system announced the guild competition rewards. Obviously, the scale of the guild competition was far greater than the mercenary competition. It was also the highlight of this competition, and the rewards would definitely be more generous. However, the reward system would probably be the same as the mercenary competition. As expected, when the rules were announced, it was indeed the same as the mercenary competition. Third place, 30 random rewards, 15 to be distributed by the system, 15 to be distributed freely. Experience and money. Second place, 40 random rewards, split equally. Experience and money. First place, 50 random rewards, split equally. Experience and money. But apart from this, one more guild mission was given. This guild mission was something that the first place mercenary group didn't have. Just as the players were discussing, the system's voice sounded again. Players from the winning guilds and mercenary groups will be given 15 minutes to sort out their pockets. If the reward cannot be given out due to a problem with the pocket space, it will be considered as forfeiting the reward. At this time, the various large guilds and mercenary groups all began to get busy. However, with the setting of the pocket in the parallel world, no matter how big an item was, it would only take up 1 slot in the pocket. Therefore, as long as there was enough space in the pocket, almost no one had to specially sort out their pockets. Of course, there were a few people who fantasized about all the rewards flying into their pockets and clearing everything. 15 minutes was enough for everyone to communicate with each other. I've never heard of the system giving out rewards based on performance. Brother Yu was shocked. I wonder what it'll be based on. Points. Unscathed in battle said as he looked at Gu Fei with jealousy. In theory, it shouldn't be like that. It should be based on the effects of the skills in the match, combined with the class's characteristics and balance to come up with a unified standard. If it's just based on points, then it'll definitely be the mage. In a group battle of this scale, most of the points will definitely be in the mage's hands. Brother, you said. No matter what, Qianli definitely won't be able to escape. Unscathed in battle said. We have a total of 6 people, so we'll give out 5. The suspense is on which loser won't get the reward. Gu Fei said as he looked towards the Han family young master and brother Yu. The loser would obviously be decided between the two of them. The child elite group's battles had always been focused on harassment and guerrilla attacks, so the two of them didn't have much to show off. As for the Han family young master's commands and brother Yu's intelligence gathering, the system obviously couldn't be smart enough to calculate all of this. The two of them looked at each other. These 15 minutes were torturous for everyone. The child elite group was slightly better because the rewards were very generous, so they weren't that nervous. As for the other guilds and mercenary groups, they were all praying to the gods and praying to their ancestors, praying that the system god would look up to them. Although some people knew their own limits and knew how much they contributed in the match, they still had to have the right to chase their dreams. The 15 minutes finally passed. The system still announced the rewards to the entire server, regardless of whether the players could see it clearly or not. But just like what was said when the rules were announced, for the players who didn't get the rewards, it was a temptation and an incentive. The system only protected the players' privacy by not announcing the names of the players who won. In the private room of Little Ray's bar, there were a total of 5 clear, ding-dong, sounds. The experts didn't lose their integrity at this time. They didn't rush to see what they got. Instead, they looked up and sized up everyone's expression. Unscathed in battle's blank and expectant look had clearly betrayed him. The 5 of them burst into laughter and pointed at him. So you're the loser? Ah. Unscathed in battle suddenly stood up. The rewards have been given out. The 5 of them nodded. Fuck, why is it mine? Why is it mine? Unscathed in battle roared. Brother Yu, the king of intelligence, the king of statistics, and the king of data, started to analyze again. To be fair, you really didn't kill many people in the competition, right? And if there are some other factors mixed in, such as the time you participated in the competition, the number of deaths, and so on, you're at a disadvantage. Unscathed in battle didn't say anything after hearing this. He really didn't kill many people, but when it came to dying, he was often the first in the team. Forget it. Since you didn't get this, you won't get one of the 5 free items later. Han family young master said. Then I won't have the chance to get 2. Unscathed in battle said. Everyone looked at him and said, shameless. Come, let's see what it is. Everyone reached into their pockets. After taking it out, they all clicked their tongues in wonder. The system is kind this time. It's given out according to the class. Brother, you said. Han family young master received a priest's staff, Angel's Deceit. Intelligence plus 10, Spirit plus 10, Constitution plus 10, Regeneration plus 20%. Skill, False Life. Instantly replenishes the target's life. Lasts for 30 seconds. After 30 seconds, the false life disappears. Skill cooldown, 2 minutes. After showing the staff to everyone, Brother Yu immediately understood. This skill is very sneaky. Watch me. After saying this, Brother Yu took out his reward, Twilight Sword. Strength plus 10, Agility plus 10, Constitution plus 10, attack increased by 35%. 10% chance of inflicting a weakening effect. This. After looking at it, everyone looked at Brother Yu. You changed your class to a Dark Paladin. Brother Yu nodded. Many of the Paladin's high-level skills are related to formations. I don't think our mercenary group needs these kinds of skills, right? You can choose what you want to play. Why bother about these things? Han family young master said calmly. This. Watching you guys slash and kill, Sometimes I feel a bit envious. Brother Yu laughed. Brother Yu, you've finally understood. Gu Fei was gratified. He had never been able to see through Brother Yu's playstyle. Brother Yu smiled and looked at Yutian Shinming. Yutian, what did you get? The reward didn't seem to lessen Yutian Shinming's melancholy from missing the finals of the guild competition. He still had an awkward expression on his face. Just as he was taking out the equipment from his pocket, 2 white lights flashed in the room. Everyone's expressions changed. What did you take out? Yutian Shinming was also shocked. Did he not see the equipment clearly? Was it a godly item? Just as he was about to take a closer look, Sword Demon beside him said, "It's okay. Wushang and I leveled up." Ah. Oh, the experience and money rewards have been announced? Everyone looked at their experience bars and money bags. They were all a lot more than before. Sword Demon and Unscathed in Battle obviously had more experience. This reward allowed the two of them to reach level 41. There was nothing strange about everyone's rewards. They looked towards the items Yutian Shinming had placed on the table. It was also a weapon. Moment of Floating Life. Agility plus 10, Strength plus 10, Range plus 5, Attack plus 35%, 10% chance of penetration. This. Brother Yu and the others were silent. In the end, he said, "It's hard to say which is better, your wind sniper howl." Yeah. Yutian Shinming nodded his head. His face was filled with hesitation. He was clearly having a hard time choosing. His wind sniper howl had agility plus 20, range plus 10, critical rate plus 15%, critical rate plus 15%, sniper enhancement plus 30%. Just from normal attack, Moment of Floating Life with its 35% attack buff was undoubtedly more advantageous. However, Wind Sniper Howl could be said to be an all-around enhancement to sniper skills. When using Sniper Howl, the damage output would undoubtedly be much higher. Use the two alternately. There's no such thing as a perfect equipment. Brother Yu saw Yutian Shinming place Wind Sniper Howl on the table and said to him. Yutian Shinming could only helplessly nod his head. Everyone's gazes fell onto the next person, Sword Demon. I'm very lucky that I didn't get a weapon. Sword Demon sighed as he took out his equipment. He already had Long Zhu Sai. That was a set that could skip levels. It was very clear that the equipment given out by the system was fairly standard. It was currently at level 40, so if he gave a weapon to Sword Demon, it would undoubtedly be a waste. The equipment that Sword Demon placed on the table looked like a piece of cloth. Of course, this was different from the masks that Gu Fei and the others usually made. This was equipment with stats. Assassin's Mask. Agility plus 10, Strength plus 10, Defense plus 10%, Stealth plus 20%. What a simple name. Everyone sighed. Stealth plus, how else can stealth be strengthened? Yutian Shinming muttered. Right now, no one has noticed any equipment or skills for stealth, so they probably don't think there's a need to strengthen stealth. Sword Demon said as he glanced at Gu Fei. Even though Gu Fei had told him that his counter-stealth didn't rely on equipment or skills, Sword Demon still wanted to know if this 20% would have any effect on Gu Fei. At this moment, it was Gu Fei's turn to display his equipment. He opened his palm and threw it on the table, this thing. Gu Fei's reward was a ring of thunder. Attack with lightning magic plus 12% chance, lightning magic resistance plus 12%. Different equipment types had different judging standards. For example, accessories normally wouldn't have as many stats as weapons. This ring of thunder, even though it only had 2 stats, it was also a purple equipment. The system's evaluation of equipment's value was very different from that of players. It wouldn't consider the practicality of the equipment's stats. Taking Gu Fei's lightning suppression ring as an example, it gave Gu Fei, an electric mage, a reward that seemed to match his identity. However, after careful analysis, the probability of enchantment was basically useless to a normal mage. Other than that, it increased the resistance to electricity. Currently, it was obvious that the mage's job advancement was more water-type than electric-type. Therefore, water-type equipment was more expensive than electric-type equipment in terms of attack and defense. The value of the resistance to electricity was not very high. Players called this kind of top-grade equipment with very high numerical value but not much use in terms of stats, pseudo-top-grade equipment. However, in the eyes of the system, there was no distinction between true and pseudo-top-grade equipment. It only felt that this ring's double attribute value was very outstanding, so it gave this ring a very high evaluation and gave it to Gu Fei as the big prize. In the eyes of the system, the value of this pseudo-top-grade equipment was probably even higher than Sword Demon and Yutian Shinming. Fortunately, Gu Fei was a pseudo-mage. If it were other mages, they would have already started cursing and swearing. However, whether it was the eyes of the system or the judgment of the players, there was no doubt that among the 5 pieces of equipment, Han Family Young Master's magic staff was the best. However, if the quality of the equipment was related to the so-called system statistics during the competition, everyone thought that Gu Fei should have gotten the best one. How could it be Han Family Young Master? Everyone was very confused about this question. After a long silence, Brother Yu, who was good at statistics, realized the problem. I know. Throughout our competition, only Gongzi was fully diligent. Fully diligent? Everyone was stunned, but immediately reacted. In the first round of the mercenary competition, the teleportation circle was too crowded, and there was only one opponent. Therefore, the others were lazy and didn't go. Only Gu Fei and Han Family Young Master participated. However, one day, Gu Fei and Uncheng Mutsu and the others were playing 100 kill outside the revival point, and missed one round as well. Counting in this way, only Han Family Young Master participated in all 10 rounds of the mercenary group competition. Just as absenteeism was the worst mistake at work, the system had also severely punished the others for not showing up. Although Han Family Young Master didn't have any great achievements, he didn't make such a big mistake. In the end, he was chosen as a good comrade and role model in the eyes of the system, and received the best prize from the system. Humph, very good, very good. Han Family Young Master said. The others were also speechless. They could only sigh at the unfairness of fate, letting this bastard take the big prize. Alright, let's go see how the prizes are distributed. Unscathed in battle had been green with envy for a long time, waiting to get his share of the freely distributed prizes. Chapter 272. The 6 people from the child elite group walked out of the Little Ray's bar room. There were many customers outside, and they were all loudly discussing the results of the competition. The biggest topic of discussion was the envy of the 6 people from the child elite group for obtaining 10 pieces of equipment. The 6 of them were secretly delighted when they heard this, but they didn't show it on their faces. They passed through the crowd with a pretentious look on their faces. The free distribution of rewards had to be received at the mercenary building. At this time, it was quite lively here. The people from the Black Hand mercenary group and the Water Flower mercenary group had all arrived. Because it was free distribution, it was easy to cause internal discord. Thus, the 2 mercenary groups called everyone here and announced the equipment to everyone. Then, everyone would discuss the distribution and try to make everyone have no objections, at least on the surface. When the people from the child elite group arrived, the atmosphere was different. 6 people, 5 pieces of equipment. No matter how you looked at it, it was easy to distribute. They didn't look as nervous as the other 2 mercenary groups. When the people from the Black Hand mercenary group saw these 6 people, although they hated them, they couldn't do anything about it. A loss in the competition was a loss. Using it as an excuse to cause trouble was too lacking in character. If you wanted to pick a fight, you should do it in the dark. If you did it in the open, you wouldn't get the support of public opinion. However, it was still okay to fight a verbal battle. When they saw these 6 people, Water Flowers against the current and Black Hand's black index finger walked over together. Little Moo, Solitude Under the Moon, also followed behind. Congratulations. Both sides said the same thing. Same to you. Han family young master said. Against the current was of course very happy. He won third place, otherwise he wouldn't have received any rewards. Black index finger wasn't too happy. Hearing Han family young master's words, why did it sound like ridicule? Of course, it was still a congratulation, so black index finger couldn't say anything. He looked at the 6 people and asked, I wonder which one of you lost your virginity at the last moment. MLGB. Gu Fei cursed in his heart, but at this time, even the people from the child elite group stared at him with disdain, betraying him. When Black Index Finger saw that it was Gu Fei, he felt very relieved. The Black Hand mercenary group was also cheering, as if they had won first place. After that, they didn't say anything else. Everyone had their own business to attend to. After the 2 mercenary groups received their equipment, they went to the side to distribute it pitifully. The child elite group entered the building, arrogantly collected the 5 items, and began to negotiate. After all, one of the 6 of them would not be able to win the prize, so they had to think about it. Wushang didn't get a prize just now. Give him one. Han family young master said. Before the others could say anything, Unscathed in Battle nodded his head like a grandchild. Of course, of course. Alright, it's none of your business. Why are you still thinking about something else? Han family young master looked at Unscathed in Battle with disdain. Fuck off, you shameless bastard. The others cursed together. Han family young master scanned the other 5 people with his bright eyes, then his gaze landed on Gu Fei. Qianli's contribution was quite big, and the prize just now was another pseudo-extreme item. He can pick one first. The others of course didn't have any objections. Unscathed in Battle was in pain. What about me? What about me? I haven't picked one yet. Fuck off, you shameless bastard. The others cursed. Giving you points is also sympathy points. Otherwise, you wouldn't even get one. You still want to pick one. Yutian Shinming looked at him with disdain. Unscathed in Battle was very depressed. The number 1 warrior in the game didn't have any status in this elite group, but he had to admit that Imperial Divine Ming's words were correct. Before, the distribution was done by the system, and those who did not get one should just blame their bad luck. After that, it would be up to the players to reward themselves. In the end, the 3 fast guys were the main force in killing enemies, and the other 2 were the commander and the intel. Judging by contribution points, the 5 rewards indeed did not belong to Unscathed in Battle. This could be seen from the point book that Sword Demon was in charge of recording. Unscathed in Battle did not dare to say anything anymore. He could only stretch his neck to look at the 5 prizes that Han family young master had revealed. Before anyone could see it clearly, Han family young master had already found one and shoved it to Gu Fei. No more picking. This is it. Take it. What? Gu Fei took it and looked at it blankly. It was a scroll of Thunder Element spell, Thunder Palm. Oh. Everyone understood. This thing could only be given to Gu Fei. It was useless for the others to take it. After this small interlude, everyone suddenly realized that it was too easy for their small team to distribute the prizes. There were 6 people and 6 classes. There was no dispute about who was suitable to use the prizes. Unscathed in Battle instantly became nervous. You said there were 4 prizes left. If there were no suitable ones for warriors, he would not be able to force them, right? Han family young master was very slow. He did not announce the 4 prizes, and the others finally went crazy. Can't you fucking hurry up? Everyone roared. Ha 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 ha. Han family young master looked at their anxious expressions and laughed proudly. This is too despicable. While everyone was thinking, Han family young master passed the prizes in all directions, and the equipment was already distributed. If we knew this would happen, we wouldn't have discussed it. We would have just taken what we needed. Han family young master said indifferently. At this time, the other 5 people each had an item. This meant that among the 6, Han family young master did not get the freely distributed prize. This. They were all embarrassed. To be honest, Han family young master had contributed a lot. Without him, child elite group would have been eliminated. With my magnificent command, it wouldn't be too much for me to take all the prizes. Unfortunately, they are all for you trash classes. Han family young master said. Trash classes, at $% and their embarrassment towards Han family young master had already disappeared. Everyone buried their heads to look at their own prizes. The division of the freely distributed prizes was very obvious. There was nothing like Gu Fei's pseudo-supreme grade ring that did not have any obvious class characteristics. It seemed that the system was kind and righteous. This kind of clear division of the prizes could obviously help the players avoid a lot of disputes. No matter how much you contributed as a mage, you still don't have the face to steal a priest's skill scroll, right? Out of the 5 prizes, besides Gu Fei's Thunder Palm, Sword Demon got a Thief's Cloak, Nightwalker's Cloak. Agility plus 10, Strength plus 10, when attacked, there is a 10% chance to forcefully enter stealth state, while in stealth state, HP will automatically recover. Brother, you also got a skill scroll, Cruel Cut, Dark Knight's skill. Creates 1.5 times damage of normal attacks, and has a certain chance to create wounds. Unscathed in Battle also got a skill scroll, Berserk Warrior's skill. Enters Berserk state, attack increases by 1.5 times, defense decreases by 50%, lasts for 30 seconds. Yutian Shinming had a sad face. He got another bow. Screw the system. Yutian Shinming cursed and wanted to throw the bow on the ground, but was stopped by the others. Look! Everyone shouted. Combo bow, agility plus 10, strength plus 10, attack plus 10%, shooting speed plus 30%, double arrow strengthened by 30%. This. It's not bad, everyone has their own strengths, Everyone comforted him vaguely. Yutian, from now on you will carry 3 bows. Use whichever one you need, professional archer. Unscathed in Battle laughed. The rewards were all distributed. Looking at the 10 items together, the most valuable was obviously the Han family young master's Angel's Cunning. Although the skill of a weapon also depended on the skill, this kind of unfamiliar skill had not been tested, so it was not easy to evaluate. Similarly, Gu Fei, Brother Yu and Unscathed in Battle got skill books, so they could only be judged after using the skill. In comparison, Sword Demon got Nightwalker's Cloak, which automatically recovered HP when in stealth state. Although it was not clearly stated how much, this line of words was enough to make people drool. However, this group of experts was still a little disappointed. This was because after seeing Gu Fei's Night Streak Sword and Sword Demon's Long Kill Short Sai, everyone's dream was to have this kind of equipment that surpassed their level. However, it was obvious that the system would not deliberately create this kind of overpowered player. Today, in order to wait for the final reward, they waited until the end of the Guild War, much later than Gu Fei's usual time to go offline. After leaving the mercenary building, Gu Fei said goodbye to a few people and went offline. Brother Yu and Unscathed in Battle went together to try out their new skills. Sword Demon also changed into new equipment and went to grind monsters to experience the experience. Han family young master checked his pockets and went to the tavern to restock his ammunition. Yutian Shinming continued to hold the 3 bows and continued to be sad. That night, the forum was burning with the flames of gossip. Players from all over the world gathered here and discussed the large amount of rewards that were given out in this quest. Everyone was extremely envious. For ordinary players, these were already the best items that they could only dream of on a daily basis. Many people didn't even think about the level of the Night Streak Sword. The officials seized the opportunity of this competition to promote the game and made a highlight video of the competition. Only then did the players find out that they were secretly filmed during the competition and inexplicably became advertising actors for the game company. However, in the post-production, all the players' appearances were completely erased and replaced with a unified face. The video was edited and arranged in the post-production, and all of them were brilliant. Especially the video of the Cloud City mage fighting against a group of enemies, which was high in the rankings. In the video, the mage in black robes and purple swords' use of dual flame damage amazed the players. What was more frightening was that this person seemed to have added a lot of agility, but he also had high magic damage. Many players questioned whether this video was fake advertising by the game company, but very quickly, the players in Cloud City came out to confirm that this person was the real deal. He was the person who single-handedly killed a level 8 thief, causing a controversy about the mage in melee combat. This person is still alive. The open beta players who still had memories of that incident exclaimed. Chapter 273. Yi Xiaowu wasn't happy about Gu Fei's video being used for publicity. However, this was a publicity matter and wasn't his responsibility, so he didn't have the authority to ask too much. Seeing the video being crazily praised by the players, he felt bad. However, for his colleagues in the publicity department, this result proved that they had chosen the right material, so they were naturally pleased. Gu Fei's fame was like a landslide that couldn't be stopped. Players outside of Cloud City didn't know who this person was, so they all asked people in Cloud City. Cloud City players said everything they knew, especially those who had a strong sense of honor. This was especially true for those who had a strong sense of honor. Although he and Gu Fei had nothing to do with each other, the thought of the two of them being in the same main city made his blood boil. He praised Gu Fei as if he was a god. "Oh. You're familiar with this mage?" "Yes, we drank together last night." "Oh. What's his name?" It's not convenient to say, most of the bragging players were defeated at this stage. Although the name of Qianli's drunken had been exposed, it wasn't known to everyone yet. However, because of the hype from the system, many people realized that their knowledge wasn't up to par, so they all made up for it. The name of Qianli's drunken was constantly being popularized. Apart from this, the strength of the guilds and mercenary groups in the main cities was also reshuffled in this competition. In Cloud City, players like reigning 4 Cs who had fought their way to the final ranking would receive a rich income in terms of EXP, not to mention the item rewards. Level 41 was no longer the exclusive domain of the top 5. Almost all of the top 3 guilds and mercenary groups had received a huge boost in EXP from the rewards they received from the final ranking. Countless level 41 players had appeared. Drifting, South Sword, 100 Eras Strategist, and Depth of Water, who were originally at level 41, remained at level 41. This also showed that there was a huge gap between the top 5 in terms of EXP. Thin Waist Dance, who was at the top of the level rankings, had already reached level 42 during the competition. After that, she did not receive any rewards from the mercenary group or guild wars, but she was still able to take the top spot. The Money Warrior was indeed a terrifying existence. The experience of the guild members increased by leaps and bounds. Coupled with the equipment reward of 50 items, the debate on who was the number 1 guild in Cloud City had come to an end. Even the second-ranked Ironclad Guild and the third-ranked First Light the Lanterns had profited handsomely. If it weren't for the fact that their guilds were only level 4, they would have long since surpassed Singing to Wine. As for the mercenary group, Child Elite Group was still a 6-man mercenary group after all. If they were to be called the number 1 mercenary group in Cloud City after winning the championship, everyone felt that it was unacceptable. However, at least people would no longer judge the strength of a mercenary group based on the size of a guild. The difference in the levels of a mercenary group was very small. Even a 6-man mercenary group could defeat a 100-man mercenary group. It was hard to say who was stronger between an 80-man mercenary group and a 100-man mercenary group. At this moment, the mercenary group was like a group of heroes vying for supremacy. The members of Child Elite Group had already been exposed. Just their thunderous IDs were enough to scare people to death. Now, when the 6 of them logged on, they would be able to pick up countless invitations from their mailbox. Aside from Gu Fei, the rest of them had finally regained some of their former pride. Although they ignored all these invitations, they still felt very happy. Gu Fei, on the other hand, actually received more letters than these guys every day. This was all thanks to the celebrity effect created by the video hype. Although Gu Fei did not have the habit of going to the official website or the forums, he still heard from Brother Yu and the others. He went to take a look and shouted that the video was fake. Why? The edited video specifically focused on the scenes where Gu Fei was successful in every endeavor. There were no awkward scenes where Gu Fei retreated to eat fruits due to his lack of mana or continued to dawdle with low damage. In short, Gu Fei's strength was infinitely magnified and his weaknesses were covered. The game company's publicity was really considerate of Gu Fei. In any case, as soon as the video was released, more people wanted to know Gu Fei. It was not only in Cloud City. Helpless, Gu Fei could only ignore the invitations like the other 5. Within a few days, Gu Fei's mailbox reached the limit of 1,000 letters. From then on, when he went online every day, "You have new letters, please check them," was changed to, "Your mailbox is full, please check them in time." 1,000 letters. Gu Fei did not have the courage to open them one by one. On this day, when he went online, he immediately received a message from Han family young master, asking him to go to Little Ray's bar as soon as possible. Could it be that there's business again? Gu Fei thought silently as he hurried on his way. During the tournament, Han family young master had said that he would make a name for himself in the tournament and that his mercenary business would be booming. Indeed, after the competition ended, there was no longer a need for the young master elite group to go to the mercenary building to choose quests. Countless players came to them with quests, and the young master elite group only chose quests with good rewards. Their days were very comfortable. Gu Fei hurried to Little Ray's bar. He pushed the door open and was stunned. There were many familiar faces in the bar, and all of them were big shots in Cloud City. Sitting at the table was Unchung Matsu. As soon as Gu Fei walked in, their eyes met. Unchung Matsu's expression was full of mixed feelings. A few steps further in, they saw Counter Current and a few of his buddies at a table. Counter Current stood up and exchanged a few words with Gu Fei. As he walked further, he saw Black Index Finger, Drifting, and the others. Black Index Finger didn't look happy when he saw Gu Fei, but Drifting greeted Gu Fei and asked him what the final reward was. Gu Fei smiled and gave him the middle finger, which startled Drifting. Gu Fei quickly reacted and pointed at the ring of thunder suppression on his middle finger. This. Drifting was relieved and asked with a smile, "Is this the only one?" "Ha, there's another one. I'll show you if there's a chance." Gu Fei smiled. After saying that, he left the table. Before he could take 2 steps, someone tugged at the corner of Gu Fei's shirt. When he turned around, he saw Sakurazuka Tsukuzi, Fireball, and a few others from their guild. They were sprawled on the table in a very wretched manner. They called out to Gu Fei softly, "Brother Zue. You guys are here too. What's up?" Gu Fei lowered his body. "Introduce them to us." A few of them sneakily pointed to the table next to them. Gu Fei turned around and saw Dance Thin Waist, Luo Luo, July, June Rain, a table full of reborn amethyst girls. Gu Fei was about to greet them with a smile, but Dance Thin Waist glared at him. "When are you going to pay me back?" Gu Fei lowered his head in shame. He took out a money pouch from his pocket and tossed it to her. Dance Thin Waist caught it in surprise, but after she opened it and counted, she said angrily, "Why is it only 300? Didn't we agree to pay in installments?" Gu Fei said. He only had 300 on him. It was all the money he had saved up from the tournament and the money he had received from the mercenary missions over the past few days. "Introduce them. Introduce them." Tsubasa Sakuratsuka and Fireball were still whispering to each other. Their 2 tables were next to each other. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka and the others were probably trying their best to sit next to the beauties. Helpless, Gu Fei was about to introduce them when Slim Waist Dancer shouted, "What are you whispering to those wretched fellows who live forever in the bushes of flowers?" Gu Fei turned around and shrugged at Tsubasa Sakuratsuka and the others. "There's no need for introductions. They all know you. They were all very happy. Even though the evaluation of perverted guys wasn't very good, at least they had left an impression in the hearts of the beauties. It was a great achievement. Aren't you the tallest tree in the forest? Gu-fei said to Tsubasa Sakuratsuka. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka glanced at Fireball and the others with disdain. It's just them. Gu-fei smiled. What about you? Tsubasa Sakuratsuka shook his head in distress. Troublesome, troublesome. What's wrong? Gu-fei didn't understand. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka scratched his head. They came with us, but when they entered the door, they suddenly turned around and left. Oh. Gu-fei was very surprised. He wasn't surprised that Boundless had turned around and left, but that Boundless had really mingled with Tsubasa Sakuratsuka and the others. As for why the girl had left, Gu-fei's gaze turned and saw Silvermoon at another table. Silvermoon was also looking in this direction. When she saw Gu-fei look at her, she immediately revealed a nervous and uneasy expression, as if she was ready to leave at any time. Gu-fei didn't make a sound. If they had bumped into each other on the street, he might have chased after her and slashed her with his sword. The child elite group and Silvermoon's relationship had already been torn to shreds. But at this moment, there were so many famous people gathered in Little Ray's bar. Gu-fei guessed that something important had happened, so he wasn't so impulsive. After glancing at the guy a couple of times, he walked to the other side. On the other side, the Han family young master and the others also occupied a table. Just the fact that they didn't sit in a private room and came to the main hall was strange enough. The seat had long since been reserved for Gu-fei. As soon as he sat down, a circle of people started to criticize him. TSK, a big star. How different. When Gu-fei entered the bar, he greeted everyone along the way. No matter if they hated him or loved him, they all looked him in the eye. What's up? Gu-fei didn't care about their taunts and went straight to the point. When it came to information, it was naturally Brother Yu who spoke. The people from Reigning the Four Seas have called everyone here. Everyone? Yes, the stronger mercenary groups in Cloud City are all here. Oh. Gu-fei looked around. Sure enough, everyone here was the boss of a mercenary group. Even though he didn't recognize some of them, he could tell that they weren't ordinary players. What's up? Asked Gu-fei. I heard it has something to do with the reward mission from the Reigning the Four Seas Guild War, said Brother Yu. Yutian, you don't know? Gu-fei asked Yutian Shinming. Yutian Shinming shook his head. Looks like you've been marginalized. Unscathed in battle rubbed the kid's head. Butterfly not, the butterfly that everyone is familiar with is coming back. Ho ho. Just kidding. Because a new storyline is about to unfold, the butterfly needs to be well planned. Everyone look forward to it. Chapter 274. Little Ray's Bar was a gathering of the strongest mercenary groups in Cloud City. Perhaps there were many mercenary groups that didn't show their strength before, but this competition was like a process of eliminating the weeds and retaining the essence. It didn't matter if these mercenary groups won or lost in the competition. In short, if there was anything special about the group, or if there were any special experts, it would be reflected in the competition. Taking the mercenary groups in the bar as an example, Child Elite Group didn't need to be mentioned. Other than them, Silvermoon was naturally sitting here because of his King's Command. Battle formation type skills were obviously indispensable in group battles, but this type of skill was said to only be possessed by high-level paladins. Silvermoon now had it, so he immediately became a vanguard player and was naturally sought after by the major guilds. Other than him, the girls' Amethyst mercenary group actually didn't have much strength, but the existence of Thin Waist Dance immediately made it worth inviting. Another example was Tsubasa Sakuratsuka's mercenary group. Later on, Gu-fei learned that it was called Great Hunt, and the members were also from their guild. It was a special mercenary group that gathered expert trappers. All these special mercenary groups were invited by Reigning the Four Seas today. As for why the people from reigning the four seas hadn't shown up yet, everyone could only speculate. Fortunately, they didn't have to wait too long. After a few more mercenary groups arrived, reigning the four seas Unsworn Sword, along with the two core members, Reflection of Years and Wind Star, arrived at the bar. Reigning the four seas throne as number one in Cloud City was unshakable. Guild leader Unsworn Sword's face was flushed, and he was full of energy when he entered. Mercenary group leaders like Unchung Mutsu and Countercurrent were actually the leaders of major guilds in Cloud City. Since the establishment of their guilds, they had always been fighting openly and covertly. Now that reigning the four seas was finally the strongest guild, it was inevitable that they were in high spirits when they saw these people. Ha, old Yun. Long time no see. Ah, Countercurrent, how have you been lately? Unsworn Sword's voice was deafening. Everyone in the room frowned. Everyone looked down on this nouveau riche. They felt that it was a tragedy for all the players in Cloud City to have such a person lead the biggest guild in Cloud City. After that, Unsworn Sword greeted the rest of the mercenary groups one by one. His attitude instantly became much more humble, especially when he greeted the reborn Amethyst ladies. He was so polite that everyone in the room felt like vomiting. Usually, the finale was the main show. After Sword of Oathless finished greeting everyone, it was the child elite group's turn to greet everyone. Even Yutian Shinming, who was originally an ordinary member of Crisscrossing the Four Seas, received a solemn welcome. This was a treatment that other mercenary groups did not enjoy. As the highlight of the highlight of the highlight, Gu Fei was left to the last. Unsworn Sword pulled Gu Fei's hand and consoled him. Beside him, Time of Reflection and Feng Xing looked a little uncomfortable. One was angry, and the other was confused. After consoling for a long time, Unsworn Sword said, "You've brought glory to the players of Cloud City. I'm so proud." Everyone in the room couldn't take it anymore. One person slammed the table and stood up, staring at him. "Unsworn, if you have something to say, just say it. Are you looking for a beating? Look at your burning face." Unsworn Sword finally let go of Gu Fei. After looking back, he laughed. "Ha, say it, say it. This woman is tough." "Who is it?" Gu Fei was surprised. Even if everyone in the house was dissatisfied, she didn't give them face by saying it so directly. This woman was very domineering. Brother Yu immediately came up and introduced. "This is Gu Xiaosheng, the leader of 7 colored clouds. She's also the leader of the level 3 guild colored clouds. Before Slender Waist Dance came, she was probably the strongest woman in Cloud City. I heard that Unsworn Sword has been chasing after her for a long time. Wow, Unsworn Sword's taste is so unique." Unscathed in battle and Yutian Shinming exclaimed. This Gu Xiaosheng's looks were above average, but she was too strong. If people didn't pay attention, they would think that she was a man. This was different from June Rain. June Rain's appearance was unkempt, she wore her equipment carelessly, and her voice was androgynous. That was why Gu Fei had mistaken her for a man. Ever since she had changed into a female warrior's armor in Moonlit Night City, this misunderstanding had never happened again. This Gu Xiaosheng, on the other hand, had a completely different temperament. Even if you knew she was a woman, you couldn't help but think, wow, this girl is so manly. It was this girl who shouted at Unsworn Sword. Unsworn Sword finally stopped his condolences and walked to the center of the tavern. He cleared his throat and said, "Everyone here is an elite of the mercenary world in Cloud City. Today, I asked everyone to come here because I have a mission that I would like to ask everyone to cooperate with." As soon as he said this, the room was filled with gasps of surprise. Why? Everyone here was a mercenary group. No one had a better understanding of the various quests in the game than they did. Although these mercenary groups often had dozens of people, frankly speaking, with the current missions issued by the system, there was no one that required dozens of people to be mobilized. And now that Reigning the Four Seas wanted to hire mercenaries for a quest, it was obviously not a private player dispute quest. With a mercenary group of 750 people, would they not be able to settle a private player dispute? Therefore, it could only be a system quest. A system quest couldn't be completed by 750 people, and it actually needed the help of a mercenary group. What kind of quest could be so difficult? Unsworn Sword gave everyone enough time to gasp in surprise, mainly because he enjoyed the shock of the announcement. After everyone quieted down and looked at him, he continued, "This quest is the reward that Reigning the Four Seas obtained in the Guild War. To be honest, this quest looks like a chain quest." Another uproar. All along, players had thought that the high rewards of solo quests were chain quests. The more difficult form of guild quests were two-way quests. No one had ever heard of guild quests being linked to a chain quest. The members of Child Elite Group all looked at Gu Fei. Chain quests had been a legend for a long time, but Gu Fei was probably the only one who had ever completed one. It wasn't to say that the others were unlucky and couldn't get one, but if they did, they would fail half of the quest. There were also those who couldn't continue halfway and had to complete a chain of quests. In any case, the only one they knew of was Gu Fei. Unsworn Sword enjoyed everyone's surprise and continued, "The content of this quest is very simple. It's escort." Escort? Everyone was taken aback. This word, which was full of wuxia connotations, was a bit awkward to use in this Western fantasy-style game. "That's what it means." Unsworn Sword said, "Escort the item all the way to the destination. From the route shown, we have to pass through a total of 5 main cities, and a one-way trip would probably take dozens of hours. Since we're escorting the item, we'll probably encounter many robberies along the way." Everyone listened and understood. Someone couldn't help but ask, if that's the case, the difficulty of the battles along the way is also unknown. Are you sure that your 750 people can't handle it and need help from a mercenary group? Unsworn Sword looked at this person and said solemnly, "Because there are special rules. Guild members only have one chance to survive during this quest. In other words, if we die, we'll immediately fail the quest and lose the quest reward." Ah. While everyone was still thinking about the details of this rule, Unsworn Sword had already explained another rule. Also, during the quest, guild members can't change the main city record point. Everyone should understand what this means, right? Without waiting for the others to answer, Unsworn Sword explained, "This means that in the early stages, even if there are guild members who have been sacrificed, they can continue to join the battle and help us. But when we have traveled for a few hours, the sacrificed guild members will all be resurrected in Cloud City, and they will no longer be able to help us. So, you want to hire some outsiders to help. Because we're not restricted by the rules, we can also set up a record point in the nearest main city even if we're a few hours away. After we die, we can also revive nearby and continue to help you, right?" Someone suddenly said coldly. Unsworn Sword said faintly, "Everyone here is an expert. Of course, you won't die as easily as ordinary members of our guild. However, compared to our members who can't continue to help if they die, this advantage of yours is indeed what we need. So, you can feel free to mention the quest reward. You can also sit down and slowly discuss the compensation for the sacrifice during the quest. Other than that." Unsworn Sword paused intentionally before continuing, "Everyone can share the equipment and items dropped during the battle along the way. What do you think?" This condition was indeed very generous. According to the usual rules of mercenary missions, the equipment dropped by helping the employer to kill monsters and so on would belong to the employer. Even if there was a prior agreement, it would only be a drop in the ocean. On the other hand, Sword of Unsworn suggested full sharing. In other words, the loot would belong to whoever obtained it. The players had their own thoughts at this time, and it was quiet in Little Ray's bar. There was a victorious smile on Unsworn Sword's face. "That's the gist of the matter. Everyone, come down and think about it. Send me a message when you're done. If there's anything you don't understand or have any requests, feel free to inform me. Then, we'll take our leave first." After Unsworn Sword finished speaking, he left with Wind Star and Reflection of Time. The players who stayed in Little Ray's bar were pondering the same question, to do it or not to do it. Chapter 275. Unsworn Sword had come and left in a pompous manner. Although he had left behind a rather disgusting face, he had also left behind a great temptation. Let's not talk about the rewards that Reigning the Four Seas would have to pay for this quest. If this was truly a chain quest, then the loot that they would receive along the way would be extraordinary. This was the reason why these self-proclaimed experts were so excited. No one who played the game could resist the temptation of equipment. Moreover, there was a rumor in the parallel world that anyone who completed a chain quest could become a 1 in a million expert. Now that there was a chance to get a share of the rewards, it was a godsend. With this thought in mind, a few tables had already stood up and chased after Unoathed Sword the moment he stepped out. The rest of the people who were still sitting were still carefully pondering over this matter. The 6 members of the child elite group stared at each other. What should we do? Brother Yu asked. I'll definitely do it. Even if we don't go, I'm still a member of the guild. Yutian Shinming was the first to express his stance. Although he seemed to be on good terms with the guild, he did not mind getting closer to the guild when there were benefits to be had. Gu Fei frowned. It'll take more than 10 hours. How are we going to do it? They all knew that Gu Fei did not play the game for long. After giving him a disdainful look, Brother Yu said, this can't be done in one go, right? Reigning the Four Seas will also consider their guild members' timetables. In the end, they will definitely choose a time when everyone is free. It can only be the same as the competition, after 7 p.m. This Qianli should be fine, right? Oh, that's good. Gu Fei let out a sigh of relief. It seems that Brother Yu wants to do it too. Han family young master looked at him. Hee hee. Brother Yu laughed dryly. It's a rare opportunity to participate in a chain quest. I'm sure I'll be able to gather a lot of information. The Han family young master glanced at everyone at the table and finally said, then, let's make our stand clear. If you don't want to do it, buy me the most expensive bottle of wine. Fuck, what is this? Everyone looked at him in disdain. So no one wants to buy it? The vote was unanimous. That's enough. The Han family young master made the decision. That's too evil. Everyone expressed their opinions, but no one strongly objected. Actually, everyone was hesitant about whether to do it or not. They didn't have a clear reason to do it. The Han family young master had found an excuse for everyone, although it was shameless and vile. At this time, the girls from Amethyst also came over and asked Gu Fei, are you guys doing it? Oh, yes. What about you guys? Gu Fei asked. That lunatic, who's going to help him? You guys shouldn't do it either. You're helping the evildoer. Slender Waist Dance snorted angrily. She was still making decisions for Child Elite Group. But I want to do it, sob. June Rain felt wronged. Gu Fei understood her passion for the mission and sympathized with her. He immediately said, it's okay, little Rain, you can come with us. Can I? June Rain asked. I have no objections. Gu Fei turned around and looked at the others. He wanted to recruit June Rain as a temporary member. The Han family young master's face turned cold. Support, support. On the other side, Unscathed in Battle and Yutian Shinming were already cheering. When Brother Yu saw this, he turned his head to the side and said, forfeit. The vote was unanimous. That's enough. Gu Fei made the decision. As the group leader, the Han family young master didn't even get a chance to speak. That's not good. July saw that the Han family young master didn't look happy. She didn't want to bring trouble to anyone, so she immediately said to June Rain, I'll go with you. Oh, that's great. June Rain cheered. If that's the case, we'll need a cleric, right? Luo Luo also spoke up. I like fighting. Fiercely yelled. Alright, we'll go back and ask if anyone else wants to go. July called out to the girls and left. Slender Waist Dance was startled for a moment before she chased after them. Hey, if everyone else is going, I'll go too. Brother Yu watched as the girls left, and said after a while, to be honest, I think that Raining the Four Seas only invited them because of Slender Waist Dance. If Slender Waist Dance doesn't go, the others might not have the chance to go. No one said a word. It was clear that even Gu Fei understood this principle. Otherwise, he wouldn't have invited June Rain to tag along with them. He also understood that if she didn't go to Slim Waist Dance, June Rain wouldn't have been hired by Raining the World. In the blink of an eye, the two groups were settled. At this time, Sakurazuka Tsukuzi, Fireball, and the others also came over. They pulled Gu Fei aside and asked, "What did the beauties say to you just now?" "Oh. They're going to participate in the quest as well," Gu Fei said. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka stood up and snapped his fingers. "Okay, let's go find Unsworn Sword." "Yue-chan, you're so cool." His brothers cheered. "You didn't forget about your brothers even though you've got one. How loyal." Surrounded by the others, the group of perverted guys also left. After that, Black Index Finger, Drifting, and the others also left. Some of them greeted Gu Fei before they left, but they didn't discuss whether they should go or not. After a while, there weren't many people left in the tavern. Yutian Shinming stood up and said, "Then should I go talk to Unsworn Sword?" "Don't." Han family young master gestured for him to sit down. "How are you going to raise your own value if you're so proactive?" "Don't worry, Unsworn Sword might look like he left after throwing down a few words, but he'll be more anxious than anyone else if no one goes to help." "Is that so?" "I don't think he cares," Yutian Shinming said. Han family young master smiled and said, "It's been a few days since they got their reward after the finals. I'm sure they've already tried this quest and realized that it's difficult to complete it with just the guild's strength. That's why they came to the mercenary group for help. They don't know the situation at all. They just read the rules of the quest and they're in a hurry to hire people. They can't be that stupid, right? They've already done it. How come I didn't know about it?" Yutian Shinming was very confused. "Little brother, you've been marginalized." Unscathed in battle touched Yutian Shinming again. "Not necessarily. But as a guild member, don't you have this quest in your quest list?" Han family young master asked Yutian Shinming. "No." Yutian Shinming shook his head. Han family young master was deep in thought. "What did you find?" Brother Yu asked. "Today's wine is a bit sour," Han family young master said. "Fuck." Everyone looked at him with disdain. "In any case, all of you go do what you need to do. As for the negotiation with Sworn Sword, Brother Yu and I will handle it," young Master Han said. Just as Han family young master expected, Unsworn Sword and the others didn't come here for no reason. They couldn't complete this quest by themselves. Just this point alone was enough to make them angry. They had no choice but to hire a mercenary group. Otherwise, who would be willing to spend so much money? They purposely put on airs in Little Ray's bar and said everything as if it was nothing. In fact, it was also a cover for their last resort. They were afraid that someone would take advantage of the situation and ask for a sky-high price. In the end, it was still seen through by the Han family's young master and a few other knowledgeable people. When Unsworn Sword and the others left the bar, they were immediately chased by people who wanted to participate in the quest. At that time, they were secretly delighted. These people's eagerness naturally gave unhindered the upper hand in negotiating terms and conditions. However, they quickly realized that most of these people were not very strong. Unsworn Sword and the other mercenary groups that they liked, such as the top 4 mercenary groups in this competition, did not come looking for them. It was obvious that these mercenary groups had seen through Unsworn Sword's tactic of loosening the reins only to grasp them better. Unsworn Sword had no choice but to use the strength of 3 visits to the thatched cottage to privately invite them. Just as the rumors said, Gu Xiaoshang had a personal relationship with Unsworn Sword. After scolding Unsworn Sword harshly, he did not make things difficult for Unsworn Sword. Instead, he agreed to help Unsworn Sword without hesitation. After that, Against the Current was flatly rejected. Unsworn Sword did not bother him too much. Frankly speaking, he did not expect Against the Current to bring reinforcements. After all, Against the Current was Unhindered's biggest competitor. Since Unhindered was about to embark on a huge chain quest, it was already good enough that Against the Current did not bring reinforcements to cause trouble. Help? Impossible. Although Unsworn Sword and the others knew this, they still invited these people. They wanted to take this opportunity to see their attitude, and at the same time, remind them, we will be asking for a lot of help for this mission. If you want to cause trouble, you will offend a lot of people, so you better think carefully. That was Against the Current's attitude. Those who shared a similar status to him, such as Mu Di of the Clouds, refused to help Unhindered because of their competitive relationship with Unhindered. They were already unhappy with Unhindered's rise to power, so they refused to help him. As a result, there were many who rejected Unsworn Sword. Black Hand Mercenary Group and Child Elite Group were the ones who took the opportunity to make a vicious move. And these two guilds just so happened to be the ones that Unsworn Sword wanted to win over. One of them had the largest mercenary group, while the other had a mercenary group. Or rather, it wasn't just the mercenary group, but the entire Cloud City. Moreover, these two factions also seemed to have discussed it beforehand. Facing the Sword of Unsworn, they both said that this mission was very risky and long, but the profits were unpredictable. If they were to interfere rashly, they might lose everything, and the gains would not make up for the losses. They spoke in a dignified manner, but how could Unsworn Sword not understand the meaning behind their words? Wasn't it just the core of the quest? Ask for a high price. Unsworn Sword clenched his teeth and asked for a high price. Only then did these two reluctantly say that they would consider it. In the end, there was no reply from them. Unsworn Sword was infuriated, so he had no choice but to raise the original price a little more. Only then did these two groups agree. Wait. We'll settle the score after the quest is over. Unsworn Sword, who had been taken advantage of, made up his mind. Chapter 276. With that, Reigning the Four Seas mercenary recruitment came to an end. Aside from the mercenary groups under other major guilds in Cloud City who had no intention of helping Reigning the Four Seas grow stronger, everyone else who was invited agreed to help. Of course, there were plenty of people who took advantage of the situation to extort money. It was just that ordinary mercenary groups knew their limits and didn't dare to extort too much. They couldn't compare to the Black Hand Mercenary Group and the Young Master Elite Group. The few who got their share of the money side, Reigning the Four Seas is really rich. Everyone's mission is to raise money. 750 people. If each of us pays 100 gold, we'll have 75,000 gold. Brother Yu exclaimed. This was undoubtedly an astronomical figure, and with the quality of the players in Reigning the Four Seas, it would not be difficult for each of them to get 100 gold. As Brother Yu expected, the mission could not be completed in less than 10 hours. Reigning the Four Seas arranged for all the mercenary groups to meet outside the East Gate the next day. The goal of the day was to cross the Dark Dragon Mountain Range and head to Moonlit City. Once there, they would log off and continue the next day. At this rate, the mission could be completed in 5 days if they traveled through a major city a day. That was the general plan. After logging in that day, Gu Fei rushed to the East Gate as promised. It was already past 7, and there was a sea of people outside the gate. Reigning the Four Seas and various mercenary groups were checking to see if their members were all present. Since it was a citywide mercenary group recruitment, Reigning the Four Seas mission had caused quite a stir in the city. There were quite a few players who came to watch the show. The onlookers' eyes were filled with envy and jealousy. They pointed at some of the famous people in the crowd and discussed. Look at that, that's Sword Demon. Did you know? What? You've never heard of Sword Demon? Have you ever played an online game? Look, That's Yutian Shinming, the archer. Liar, isn't Yutian Shinming a mage? He changed his profession. Look at that, look at that. That's Slender Dance, the #1 money warrior in the game. Wow, a beauty. Ah. That's the video mage. Look. After 27149, Melee Mage, and Mission Maniac, Gu Fei now had a new title, Video Mage. Which one? The one with the apple in his mouth. Ah, so handsome and unique. Overnight, talking about an apple in one's mouth became the new fashion in Cloud City. Although the appointed time was 7:00, it was already 7:17 after everyone had arrived and confirmed everything. Sword of No Oath looked at the crowd of Wu Yang and Wu Yang, feeling gratified. Time's Reflection, on the other hand, took out a large wooden bucket from somewhere and shouted at the crowd, "Everyone, quiet down, quiet down." Weng 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 weng. Reflected Time's shouts were like pebbles thrown into the sea amidst the clamor of the crowd. Some people wanted to hear what he was saying, but they could only see his mouth move, not hear the sound coming out of his mouth. Quiet, quiet. Reflection of Years shouted in the guild channel. At least 750 people listened to him and quieted down, but the voices of the remaining mercenary groups and onlookers were still enough to suppress him. Time's Reflection waved his hands and gestured, and the members of Reigning the Four Seas also did the same, and the crowd finally quieted down. Another person came to Time's Reflection and handed him an item. It was a loudspeaker made out of a large piece of paper. Time's Reflection looked at the person gratefully and put the crude loudspeaker to his mouth. Hey, hey. He tested the sound, and then began to speak. "Everyone, the scale of this mission is very large, so I hope that everyone can listen to my unified arrangements, tisk." Time's Reflection was already booed before he could finish. The ones who booed were the members of the mercenary group. Frankly speaking, although they worked for the mercenary group and the employer was the boss, most of the time, it was the boss who listened to them. There were very few bosses who were very powerful but lacked manpower, so they hired a few mercenaries to command them. Time's Reflection obviously had this idea in mind. Although the mercenary group knew that a coordinated battle like this required a unified command, they still had to vent their dissatisfaction. Time's Reflection waited for everyone to cut before continuing. "Everyone, I'm not going to give orders from start to finish. I'm just giving you a rough plan, and the rest will be up to the people in charge of the mercenary groups to command their own members. Everyone, please cooperate." Someone shouted, "How are we going to command? We're not in the same guild or group. Should we form a party? Who has such a high level of command?" With so many people working together, it was obviously impossible to command them verbally. It was necessary to use the in-game chat channel. But right now, it was a cooperation of many mercenary groups. Everyone was not in the same guild or mercenary group, so these two channels obviously could not bear the responsibility of command. The party channel after forming a party was fine, but the problem was that there were more than 500 people in all the mercenary groups. Forming a party required the leader to have more than 50 commanding points, which was obviously impossible. In the parallel world, commanding points 1 could form a party of 10 people, but when it reached commanding points 9, which meant that one could lead a 100-person army, the experience of commanding points stopped growing. According to the official information, the growth of commanding points would be linked to reputation. As for reputation, currently, all the players' stats panel was still showing question marks. Obviously, it had not been unlocked. In this case, the system did not even support getting commanding points to 10, let alone 50. Time's Reflection only smiled faintly. There's no need for everyone to form a party. As long as the leaders of the mercenary groups form a party with me, it'll be fine. When everyone heard this, they immediately understood that this brat had already planned everything out. He was the commander-in-chief of the 3 armies, giving orders to the various regiment commanders, and then the regiment commanders would lead their regiment commanders to carry out the orders. Damn it, so arrogant. Although everyone thought so, they had to agree with this method, so the leaders of the mercenary groups all came out to form a party with Time's Reflection. Time's Reflection was still standing on the big wooden barrel, shouting non-stop, XX group leader is here. The child elite group was still thinking about this situation. Maybe the Han family young master's emotions were going to explode, but this guy did not do anything extreme at all. He silently stepped out of the line, formed a party with Time's Reflection, and silently returned. It was just that the wine bottle in his hand was unique among the group of leaders. He was already carrying his weapon. It was almost 8:00 when everything was done. The large party of more than 1,000 people valiantly set off under the gaze of the onlookers. Most of the players had never left Cloud City before, including the 3 core bosses of Reigning the Four Seas. However, because the mission was given a route map, the 3 of them arrogantly led the way. The party advanced silently. The players all had their own thoughts. Some were excited, some were expectant, and some were nervous. Everyone guessed that since this mission was an escort, it would not be a peaceful journey. They wondered what kind of difficulties they would encounter. In a situation where everything was still unknown, anyone would be a little nervous. The experts of the child elite group were mixed in the crowd. They did not stand out, but the girls from Reborn Amethyst were close with Gu Fei, as well as Yutian Shinming and Unscathed in battle, so they walked together. Moreover, the girls were a more attractive party than the child elite group. At this time, it was not just Fireball and his group of wretched fellows. Most men hoped to find a girl to chat with to pass the loneliness of the journey, so they all gathered around to exchange pleasantries. At first glance, this party seemed to have Reborn Amethyst as its core. They went all the way up the Black Dragon Mountain range. After passing through this place, they would reach the territory of Moonlit Night City. Those who had been there before, such as Gu Fei, were not unfamiliar with the place. When they saw a hillside in front of them, Yutian Shinming and Unscathed in battle suddenly became excited. There was something to talk about here. The first shot that the child elite group fired to eliminate the great bandit Suatu was from this hillside to the Black Dragon Mountain Cave. Moreover, when Gu Fei became 27149 and was being hunted down, it was also here that he did it. According to Unscathed in battle and Yutian Shinming, Gu Fei hid in the cave like a stray dog. Yutian Shinming emphasized on his vivid acting skills at the time, and Unscathed in battle shamelessly said that he was the one who came up with the plan. Wow, you two really have the guts to say that. Even Brother Yu, who was usually a nice guy, could not bear to listen to it. Brother Yu, you weren't there at the time, right? Yeah, I wasn't. The two of them echoed each other and disqualified Brother Yu as a witness. The girls only laughed when they heard it, but they did not think much of it. It was obvious that they were more familiar with Yutian Shinming and Unscathed in battle, this pair of clowns, exaggerating and boasting about their own style. Only Slender Waist Dance, who came later, did not know much about the two of them. After listening to the story, she expressed the deepest disdain for Gu Fei's seemingly embarrassing life. Do you two want to die? It was one thing for these two to boast about themselves, but they would always use this opportunity to suppress others, especially Gu Fei, who was a member of the Reborn Amethyst. He was a thorn in their hearts. Now that they were describing Gu Fei in such a manner in front of him, it was hard to imagine what they were saying behind his back. Everyone be careful, this place might be attacked. Han family young master suddenly said. Who? Could it be Suatu? Yutian Shinming laughed. As soon as he finished his sentence, a deafening roar came from the hill leading to the Dark Dragon Cave. A huge group of bandits rushed down the hill like a tide. Wow, could it really be Brother Suatu? Yutian Shinming and Unscathed in battle yelled at the same time. Chapter 277. None of the players present, be they experts or noobs, had ever seen something like this. The bandits between the two mountains were like a tide, covering the sky and covering the earth as they rushed to the mountain path where the players were. When had they ever seen such a dense horde of mobs when they were grinding? The mountain path was not wide enough for so many players to walk side by side. At this moment, more than 1,000 players were lined up in a long line. Unhindered 4Cs was at the front, the mercenaries were at the back, and the bandits and highwaymen were at the middle of Unhindered 4C's party. The mercenaries at the back were screaming in fear, but the players at the front did not panic at all. They retreated from the mountain path and walked up the slope while fending off the monsterlings' attacks. In an instant, they were already on the battlefield. Han family young master shook his head with a beer bottle in his hand. Look at how prepared they are. I knew they'd done this once before. But this formation. Brother, you looked up. The number of monsterlings in front of them was shocking, but they were not much of a threat to the players. After all, the Dark Dragon Mountain Bandits were only level 30, while the players were all level 40, and there were so many of them gathered together. The members of Reigning the 4Cs dodged to the side and opened up the battlefield. The warriors took the lead, the mages opened fire, and the archers used the arc arrow formation that had trapped Gu Fei and Slender Waist Dance in the trenches. Corpses piled up on the ground like a mountain. The old ones were killed, and the new ones fell. All sorts of equipment, items, and coins were scattered all over the place. With this formation, Reigning the 4Cs won't have any problems. They don't need our help at all. Brother, you finished his sentence. Han family young master sneered, that's because we're prepared this time. The first time, we're probably at a disadvantage here. These monsterlings aren't that powerful, but there are so many of them, and they're so sudden. You'll be caught off guard no matter what. Now that we're prepared, it's naturally easier to block them. Reigning the 4Cs was indeed easy to block. The party had set up a pocket formation at the entrance of the mountain path. The NPCs were all stupid and didn't know how to adapt to the situation. They were only focused on advancing bravely and plunged into Reigning the 4C's pocket formation. In the pocket formation, the flames of the mages reached the sky, and the arrows fell like a storm. The little monsters that rushed in were killed before they could do anything. There was no suspense at all. There's strength in numbers. The players exclaimed. This was especially true for the professional mercenary group players. Their largest group only had a few dozen people, and they had never seen hundreds of people attacking together. Naturally, they were deeply shocked. The momentum of the monsterlings gradually weakened. The 4C's pocket formation had been dispelled, and the melee players rushed up the hill to counterattack the monsterlings. The mercenary group finally found a chance to join the fray, and they rushed forward to kill the enemies. At this time, the monsters were in groups of 2s and 3s. They seemed to be old, weak, and disabled, who had fallen out of the party during the charge. The players actually had the advantage in terms of numbers. On average, each monster was surrounded by 7 or 8 melee players, and 4 or 5 ranged players. As the players fought, their eyes widened as they stared at the items dropped by the monsterlings. The system was fair. Even if they were assassins arranged in the quest chain, they were only level 30 monsterlings. The large amount of equipment that they dropped was not very useful to level 40 players. Although the quality was low, the hillside was full of them, and the quantity was extremely tempting. Suddenly, a few players killing monsterlings on the other side of the hillside approached. Seeing the equipment all over the mountain path, the players were instantly dumbfounded. They were around level 30 and had come here to level up. Trash that was not worth the attention of level 40 players were treasures in their eyes. Seeing that the players seemed to be very high level and had no intention of picking up the equipment, the few of them began to gulp. However, the mentality of high-level players was not high level at all. Normally, if they killed a random level 30 equipment, they would not want it. There were other level 30 players nearby, and they would let them pick it up. However, at this moment, the hillside was full of them. If they did not pick up the equipment themselves, wouldn't they be taking too much advantage of the situation? The gamers were indignant at the thought of this. Hence, they reached out and picked up all the low-level items that they had no intention of taking. Not even a scrap of cloth was left behind. In the end, they glared at the pitiful gamers on the hillside to demonstrate their might. The rookies were at a loss. They didn't know what heinous crime they had committed to make so many people want to kill them with their gazes. After clearing the battlefield, the party continued forward. Reigning 4Cs did a headcount. Although they had the absolute advantage in the previous battle, accidents were inevitable in such a chaotic battle. For example, if someone accidentally slipped and fell into a pocket formation, they would die. After a headcount, Reigning 4Cs had lost 10 or so players in the chaotic battle. The mercenary group had also lost a few players when they fought back to kill Steel. However, the number of mobs at that time was quite small. It was hard to imagine that such a fatal blow could be dealt. Everyone guessed that someone must have looked too much like a bandit, and was surrounded and killed by the others. It was chaotic at that time, and everyone had just joined together. They did not know each other, so it was very possible for something like this to happen. This battle was more daunting than dangerous, but it gave the players a heads up. Such a large number of monsters was actually quite frightening. However, the players had the level advantage, and unhindered had been mentally prepared for this. As soon as the battle began, they had immediately occupied the best terrain and arranged themselves in the most logical formation. This made the battle much easier. If they were in a different place, with a different monster level, would it still be so easy to ambush them? It seemed that after this battle, Reigning 4Cs realized that the problem was not as simple as it seemed. That was why he had the idea of finding more helpers. Moreover, they had lost more than 10 people in a battle that they were confident of winning. It was even more difficult to say if they were ambushed. In the future, when they were too far away from Cloud City, they would not be able to quickly replenish their lost members. It would be a huge problem. The players of the mercenary group were good at thinking. As they walked, they were still thinking about the quest in their hearts. After a while, they finally reached the mountain path of the Black Dragon Mountain Range. This mountain path was not like the mountain path from before, which was as amiable as the mountain slope when you retreated. At this time, one side of the mountain path was a cliff, and the other side was a bottomless abyss. Either you hit the wall, or you jump off the cliff. In other words, it was death on either side. How dangerous was this mountain path? The players were even longer. Those who had never walked this path did not dare to approach the side of the mountain path. If a gust of wind blew and they lost their footing, it would be rumored that they would be blown off the cliff. How embarrassing would that be? It was better to stick to the mountain wall. Some of the more imaginative players began to worry about what would happen if they were suddenly ambushed by the system. Although the mountain path and cliff seemed to have no place to hide, if you tried to reason with the system, you would lose. The system would just randomly spawn, and with a flash of white light, the mobs would appear next to you. What could you do to the system? You said it was unreasonable. Fuck, the mobs in the leveling area were all killed this way. Did anyone ask if it was reasonable? Brother Yu of the Child Elite group was the best at this kind of groundless thinking. At this time, he looked worried and asked the Han family young master, "Say, if the system suddenly spawns a lot of mobs on this mountain path, do you think we'll all be dead?" "This question is too difficult," said the Han family young master. "I'm drunk." "It won't." June Rain actually spoke. "This is illogical. How can there be mobs here? Crawl out from the rocks." June Rain said as she touched the cliff, looking for a gap that people could crawl out from. "There's no need. We just need to spawn them." Brother Yu replied seriously, and used the principle of farming monsters in the leveling area. Gu Fei's face was full of tears. "Brother Yu. Trying to talk logic with Little Rain, you've already lost." Thus, June Rain began to think about the relationship between the leveling area monsters that Brother Yu mentioned and the current situation. When she thought it through, Brother Yu had already forgotten about this matter. Hey, why aren't we moving? Why aren't we moving?" Suddenly, the team slowed down and stopped in some places. The players were confused, but they quickly quieted down. This was the advantage of online games. It was so convenient to chat in the channel. It was impossible for something to happen at the front of the team, but the back of the team didn't know about it. There were some questions at the back of the team. The people at the front had already reported back, "The road is broken." The road is broken. What does that mean? The people who walked this path, such as the people from the child elite group, didn't understand for a moment. June Rain reacted quickly and said in a daze, "Has it been refreshed? What the heck? When will we reach Moonlit Night City?" Thin Waist Dance was also shouting. She came from the outer city, so she had walked this path before. With her usual speed, she really couldn't stand the slow advance of the large team, and now they had actually stopped. The people at the back still didn't understand what "the road is broken" meant. The mountain path was dangerous, and it wasn't easy to squeeze forward, so they could only wait silently. From the messages sent down by the mercenary group leaders, the people at the front of the team said that the problem would be solved soon, and that everyone should wait. Sure enough, not long after, the team began to move forward slowly again. As they walked, they could hear the exclamations of understanding coming from the front. It wasn't until Gu Fei and the others reached the front that they understood. The group looked in front of them and said in a daze, "Damn, the road really has been refreshed." June Rain was very pleased. In front of them, the Black Dragon Mountain path that should have existed seemed to have been cut out of thin air, missing a distance of 3 meters. But at this time, there was a man-made wooden bridge. 2 long logs of more than 3 meters were placed on both ends of the road, and on top of the bridge were pieces of wooden planks. This bridge was very simple, and very dangerous. The players on it were all trembling with fear. There was a group of people with ashen faces standing against the mountain wall, looking like they didn't dare to walk on this man-made bridge. "Tisk, what's wrong with this?" Thin Waist Dance curled her lips and went on the bridge. Her speed was very fast, and she passed a few people in an instant. This undisciplined behavior of crossing the bridge scared the people on the bridge. Then June Rain also stepped on the bridge. This quest is really fun. June Rain was excited, and she bent over to lift a piece of wooden plank to study it. The person in front of her obviously felt the ground under his feet loosening. He turned around and saw that half of his foot was in midair, and under his foot was a completely bottomless cliff. Ah! The person instantly felt the ground under his feet was empty, and he couldn't put any strength into it. His legs immediately weakened, and his body very cooperatively swayed, and he fell. Chapter 278. The scream came from the simple wooden bridge, piercing through the fog of the abyss below. Gu Fei and the others craned their necks, hoping to hear the heart-pounding sound of the heavy object falling to the ground. It was said that this sound was magical, and the depth of valleys, rivers, and lakes could be estimated with this method. Of course, throwing people was a little cruel. Everyone tilted their heads to listen, but the pretty boys standing close to the wall turned green and said in fear, "Don't listen, we can't hear the sound, can't hear the sound. It's that deep." Everyone discussed, but as expected, the person had fallen for a long time, and the voice gradually faded until it disappeared, but there was still no sound of the landing. "Is this mountain that high?" Gu Fei muttered. June Rain was still hugging the wooden plank, and saw the person in front of her disappear. She was stunned for a while and said, "Everything was fine, why did he fall? Is this bridge not sturdy?" June Rain said as she stomped twice. "Ah!" Everyone screamed. The warrior stamped his feet twice, and the bridge shook thrice. The players who were still on the bridge were scared half to death. Half of them had already bent over on the bridge and degenerated into reptiles. They all turned around and glared at June Rain. At this time, even a beauty could not stop everyone's hateful gazes. Unfortunately, June Rain did not pay attention to everyone's gazes, and even if she did, she would not understand. She lowered her head and muttered, "Not bad, it's quite sturdy." As she said that, she took a big step forward. The people behind her cried, "Heroine, put the plank in your hand back." In the end, June Rain did not hear them because she was deep in thought, or she did not realize that they were talking about her, but she just walked away with the plank under her arm. The person behind her immediately retreated from the bridge. Most of the people on the bridge were girls who were reborn amethyst, and they looked at him and said, "Brother, you don't have to go that far. Just take that plank and walk over." The person looked at June Rain's back. "Let's wait for the heroine to go over first." As a reincarnated amethyst, she naturally understood the rain in June the most. Now that she thought about it, she also felt that the rain in June was too scary. The girls were already feeling guilty when they saw the bridge. Not all girls were as valiant as the skinny waist dancer, or as brainless as the rain in June. Even so, there were no pretty boys among the girls. The group of pale-faced fellows seemed to have made up their minds to give up. After everyone crossed the bridge, they would return to Cloud City. Among them, there was no lack of girls from reigning the Four Seas and other mercenary groups, which made quite a few lonely perverts feel quite regretful. The guys from Child Elite Group seemed to be quite calm. Although Brother Yu liked to worry for nothing, Brother Yu had always been a man of facts and evidence. With so many people successfully crossing the bridge in front of him, it proved that there was no problem, so he wasn't worried at all. In the spirit of ladies first, the elite squad members let the reborn amethyst girls pass first. They immediately got on the bridge. Brother Yu was the first. Once he stepped on it, he felt more at ease and simply walked on. Then came the Sword Demon, Han Family Young Master, Gu Fei, Yutian Shinming, and finally Unscathed in Battle. This guy suddenly grabbed Yutian Shinming. "Yutian, is the bridge sturdy?" "Of course," Yutian Shinming said. "With my weight, will it be sturdy?" Unscathed in Battle asked. Yutian Shinming's eyes started to wander. Indeed, he hadn't seen Unscathed in Battle's wide and muscular body on the bridge. But seeing Unscathed in Battle's hesitant expression, Yutian Shinming wasn't worried at all. Instead, he became unusually excited and said loudly, "What, are you afraid?" "What are you talking about? Why would I be afraid? I just feel that the plank is a bit thin, and a bit brittle," Unscathed in Battle said. Yutian Shinming nodded his head. "Then according to the laws of physics, you can crawl on it. The larger the area, the smaller the pressure will be. I suggest crawling forward with your entire body on the ground." "Ha ha ha ha," Yutian Shinming said and walked away happily. "Brother, are we going?" The players behind saw Unscathed in Battle's expression and thought that he was going to be a gigolo, so they started to urge him to make way. There was still the reborn amethyst girl in front of them. At that moment, there was no lack of people looking back. Their concerned gazes caused Unscathed in Battle to make up his mind. "Let's go. Why aren't we moving?" After saying that, Unscathed in Battle took a step forward. It was different. When Unscathed in Battle stepped on it, the degree of bending of the plank was indeed different from when others stepped on it. When he stepped on it, he felt the plank sink. Unscathed in Battle was scared out of his wits. He quickly tried to retreat, but the players behind him were already impatient. Seeing him take a step forward, they immediately followed. As Unscathed in Battle retreated, he naturally bumped into this player. At that moment, there were also countless people waiting to get on the bridge. Even though Unscathed in Battle was strong, he couldn't overcome so many people. In the end, not only did he fail to retreat, the people behind him pushed him back. "What are you doing? Hurry up." Unscathed in Battle was pushed back again. He cursed loudly, "Fuck," but both his feet were already on the bridge. The plank was still bent, but at least it wasn't broken. Unscathed in Battle's heart calmed down a little, and only then did he move forward steadily. Gu Fei and the others in front of him had already gotten off the bridge, but the people on the other end of the mountain path were piling up. After enduring for so long, Unscathed in Battle was finally able to get off the bridge, but he realized that there was no place for him to step on. "Go! Why aren't you moving? Hurry up!" Unscathed in Battle didn't feel the danger under his feet as he walked. Now that he was standing still, he felt his feet sinking and rising. The plank seemed to be supporting him with great difficulty, and it could crack at any moment. "Give me a place to get off the bridge." Unscathed in Battle roared. "There's no place, there's really no place." Yutian Shinming was the last person to get off the bridge in front of him, and he stood in the last place where he could step on. The mountain path was already crowded with people. Unscathed in Battle knew that he couldn't force his way through. This wasn't a public bus. If he tried to grab a seat and barge through, he might be able to get on the road, but there would definitely be more people falling off the cliff because of the crowding. Unscathed in Battle wasn't that unkind. "Why aren't we moving?" Unscathed in Battle was anxious. Han family young master turned around and looked at him. "There's another broken road in front of us. We're building a bridge, and then we have to cross it one by one, so it's a bit slow." Unsworn Sword and the other 2 core members of Reigning the Four Seas were at the front of the group, so they were the first to know about the situation. Then, Shadow Years would report the situation to the mercenary group leaders through the team channel, and the leaders would then inform their companions. However, Han family young master was obviously irresponsible. He only listened and did not speak. Look at the people on the bridge behind Unscathed in Battle. None of them stopped to ask questions because of the group. It was obvious that the leader had already reported the situation to the mercenary group channel. "Damn it, so unlucky. Why do I have no place to squeeze when it's my turn?" Unscathed in Battle was furious. He felt like the wooden plank under his feet was sinking even deeper. "Ha, you have to stand firm. If you really can't do it, just lie down." "Ah." Yutian Shinming turned around and shouted at Unscathed in Battle, mocking him without restraint. The reborn Amethyst girls had been in front of the child elite group, so they were naturally at the side of the bridge. They all turned around to look at Unscathed in Battle, who had a nervous expression on his face. They all pursed their lips and laughed. Unscathed in Battle couldn't take it anymore. No matter how worried he was, he had to hold on. He gave himself some courage and looked at Yutian Shinming with disdain. I'm standing firm. 2 legs are unnecessary. 1 is enough." Although Unscathed in Battle said that, he didn't plan to stand on 1 leg. He just had this thought in his mind. As he spoke, one of his legs unconsciously left the ground. This faintly discernible leaving the ground was impossible for outsiders to see, but it ruined things just like that. Unscathed in Battle's worries were not unfounded. The wooden plank was indeed struggling to support his weight, especially the one under his feet. This was the last plank that many people stepped on when they got off the bridge. They walked across the bridge in fear, and when they were about to step off the bridge, they couldn't help but feel excited. Many people stepped on the ground happily. The pressure that this plank withstood was far greater than the other planks. Unscathed in Battle just stood there obediently. Now that he had the thought of giving it a try, he lifted his other leg slightly, and the plank that he was standing on could no longer hold on. Pa-cha! The sound that many people had been waiting for finally rang out. Unscathed in Battle let out an "Aya," and sank with the broken plank. In the nick of time, Unscathed in Battle suddenly spread out his arms and hung on the 2 long planks that supported the plank. These 2 pieces of wood were undoubtedly very sturdy, and they were enough to support Zhang Wushang. But the problem was that his toss was far more violent than Jun Rain's stomp. The endless screams behind him instantly drowned out Zhang Wushang's small voice. Zhang Wushang's comrades on the bridge all fell down like dumplings. Many of them were still hugging a small piece of wood in their arms. They reached out to grab at the critical moment, and they didn't manage to grab the long piece of wood. Instead, he managed to grab the small piece of wood that fell with him. In the end, he ended up dying together with the piece of wood. It was such an injustice. In just an instant, there was not a single person left on the bridge. Many of the planks that supported the bridge also fell. It seemed that the bridge could no longer be walked on. The players standing on both sides of the cliff were dumbfounded. In the end, someone said, "What a sin." The players sighed. Suddenly, someone from the direction where they came from pointed and said, "Look, there's a survivor. They didn't know what Unscathed in Battle had done. This sinner was treated as a survivor by them. They actually applauded Unscathed in Battle's luck. Brother Yu shook his head and said, "This is a sin." It was obvious that the reflection of years had already told everyone in the group chat. Traversing the 4 seas came prepared. The Han family young master said to the people around him, they couldn't continue after reaching this point last time. This time, they recruited a mercenary group and brought along the equipment to cross this cliff. Did they do it themselves? Everyone looked at the members of Traversing the Seas and took out wooden planks from their pockets to pave the long logs. Yes, it's not easy at all. The Han family young master sighed. There was no such thing as a carpenter in the game. He wondered how Traversing the Seas made these wooden planks. The new bridge was soon completed. With the previous example, the players who crossed the bridge were very careful. No one dared to show off on the bridge anymore. Everyone was quiet and careful as they crossed the bridge. Gu Fei and the others followed the crowd and continued to advance on the mountain road. Not long after, they arrived at the second bridge. One by one, they crossed the bridge. When it was Unscathed in Battle's turn, countless players looked at him with sincere eyes. "Brother, can you be the last one to cross?" Unscathed in Battle nodded with tears streaming down his face. He then crouched in a corner. Gu Fei and the others waited for him after crossing the bridge. Unscathed in Battle was not the last one to cross. One of the players from Traversing the Seas stayed behind and signaled for Unscathed in Battle to cross first. After Undying War successfully crossed the bridge, the players of Reigning the Seas followed closely behind him and dismantled the bridge piece by piece. In the end, they stuffed the 2 5-meter-long logs into their pockets. It was as if they were performing a magic trick. Everyone gasped in amazement as they watched the scene unfold before them. The group continued to move forward. By the time Broken Cliff counted, they had already crossed 4 bridges. After another pause, the group did not recover for a long time. The mercenary group leaders reported back to their clueless members, "The new cliff is too far ahead. The wooden planks that Traversing prepared aren't long enough. We're thinking of a solution." After waiting for a long time, the player from Traversing the Seas, who was responsible for dismantling the bridge after crossing the cliff, suddenly walked in front of the child elite group. He looked at Gu Fei and said, "Brother Qianli, our guild leader would like to invite you to the front." "Me?" Gu Fei did not understand. The Han family young master, on the other hand, had an unsurprisingly pleased smile on his face. He patted Gu Fei and said, "Let's go." "I'll go with you." The guild leader said that you're the only one who can cross the cliff without the bridge. The player replied. Gu Fei nodded. Although he had followed the others to cross the bridge, there was actually no need for it. He could teleport over the cliff. In fact, he was not the only one. For example, the first cliff was no more than 3 meters. This was a result that anyone could achieve during the long jump in a sandpit. However, the problem was that this was a cliff. It was not easy to overcome the psychological barrier to jump over it. Accompanied by the Han family young master and the player from Traversing the Seas, Gu Fei walked to the front of the group like a savior. The cliff in front of them was estimated to be 7 or 8 meters tall. The mist rising from the broken cliff made the mountain path look a bit hazy. Unsworn Sword, Reflection of Time, and Wind Walking, the 3 core members of Traversing the Seas, were squatting at the front with worried expressions. When they saw Gu Fei arrive, they immediately came to greet him. "The wooden planks aren't long enough. I didn't think there would be such a wide ditch," Unsworn Sword said. Countless players called this cliff a ditch, mainly to remind themselves that there was nothing to be afraid of. Gu Fei glanced at it and asked, "Then what do you plan to do?" "Use a rope," Unsworn Sword said. "Oh. I'll go over first, then I'll pull a rope." "Everyone hang on a rope?" Gu Fei asked. "Yes." Unsworn Sword nodded. Gu Fei stood at the edge of the cliff and looked down. He smiled, hang on a rope. Aren't you afraid? Unsworn Sword sighed, there are a lot of people who don't dare to cross. There's nothing we can do. But Brother Qianli, can you cross this ditch? I'm almost there. Gu Fei nodded. Then it'll be troublesome. Unsworn Sword said. Tell everyone to make way for me. Gu Fei said. Huh? Unsworn Sword didn't understand. It's too wide. I can't just teleport over. I'll have to jump a bit. Gu Fei said. Unsworn Sword was startled again. He gave a thumbs up, Brother Qianli, you're really brave. They were all traversing the seas players. Making way for them would only take a few words from Unsworn Sword. Gu Fei retreated a few meters and rubbed his palms together. Han family young master came in front of Unsworn Sword. He also rubbed his palms together, Guild leader Unsworn, this is the special contribution we agreed on. Unsworn Sword helplessly nodded, I'll remember it. Hee hee. Han family young master crossed his arms and stood to the side. He shook his head at Gu Fei, pass. I don't need you to tell me that. Gu Fei had already started running. Rushing to the edge of the cliff, he leapt up without hesitation. With just a single leap, he had already traversed half of the cliff. Following that, he chanted an incantation in midair. With a whoosh, his figure disappeared, and he was already standing firmly on the opposite mountain path. The applause was thunderous. Of course, what everyone admired wasn't Gu Fei's skill. They admired his courage to fly over the cliff. If it was anyone else, even if they could teleport, they might not have the courage to fly over the cliff and chant again. Gu Fei, on the other hand, came over and said a few words to Unsworn Sword before casually jumping and singing. Rope! Gu Fei shouted from the opposite side. Unsworn Sword took out a giant axe and tied the thick rope tightly to the axe's handle. With a swing of his arm, the giant axe flew over with the rope attached. Gu Fei didn't reach out to catch it. He waited for the axe to land. There was no place to tie the rope on the bare mountain road. Unsworn Sword's plan was to tie the rope to the axe's handle and nail the axe into the ground. Of course, just one wasn't enough. Unsworn Sword gathered his subordinates and threw 3 more giant axes over. They were all crudely made axes that only had the shape of an axe. They were already level 40 players, yet they were still able to gather such lousy weapons. It really wasn't easy. Immediately after, someone threw a hammer over. Gu Fei busied himself over here. He didn't have any strength, so it was slow to work. Unsworn Sword and the other warriors took action. In a few moments, they had already nailed 5 axes into the ground. The rope was tied around the axes 5 times. Gu Fei's movements were louder than anyone else's, but his efficiency was lower. The end of the axe's handle wasn't sharp, so it didn't have the spirit of a nail. It was fine at the beginning, but the deeper it went, the more difficult it became. Gu Fei busied himself for a long time before he finished planting the 4 axes. Finally, he began to tie the rope around the axe's handle. Everyone was also very nervous. Brother Qianli, use more strength. Tie a few more times. Unsworn Sword shouted. Tie a dead knot. Han family young master reminded. Finally, after everything was done, a rope bridge was erected between the cliffs. Who's first? Everyone looked at each other and modestly said. I'll do it. As the guild leader, Unsworn Sword was the first to stand up. He clapped his hands, squatted down, grabbed the rope, and jumped down. Just like how unscathed in battle had hung on the wooden bridge, this matter didn't rely on strength, but on endurance. Therefore, it wasn't too difficult in the game. Unsworn Sword hung under the rope, his hands alternating as he swayed and twisted his way over. However, it took a lot of effort to climb back up the mountain. Gu Fei's strength was too weak. It was of limited help to him. Unsworn Sword had to eat dirt for a long time before he could climb back up. After taking 2 deep breaths, he turned around and shouted, "Let's go. It's very sturdy, no problem." Chapter 280. Unsworn Sword successfully crossed the rope bridge. His build and equipment were of the same weight class as Unscathed in battle, which undoubtedly boosted the confidence of the players behind him. No one was worried about the quality of the rope bridge anymore. Most of them were unwilling to cross it because they could not resist the fear in their hearts. Don't look down. If you're afraid, move faster. This is a game, it's very simple. Come. Quick. Unsworn Sword clapped his hands to encourage the player below the rope. Very good, we're almost there. Only 1 meter left. His strength was naturally much stronger than Gu Fei's, so he easily helped the player up. Damn, it's so noisy. The person who had been helped up was the young master of the Han clan. He muttered under his breath, picked his ears, and stood to the side with Gu Fei. The players crossed the rope bridge one by one. Unsworn Sword was very careful. He would often check if the rope that Gu Fei tied was loose. He would then stand at the side of the bridge and pull up every player that arrived. More and more people piled up behind him, slowly becoming a hindrance. Unsworn Sword looked back and waved his hand. Let's continue forward. The newly formed team continued forward. Gu Fei also wanted to go, but he saw that Han family young master had not moved. Not moving? Gu Fei asked. Look. Han family young master looked at the rope bridge. Why hasn't anyone fallen? Such bad taste. Gu Fei scolded him as he crossed his arms and stood at the side of the mountain to watch. Unsworn Sword glanced at the 2 spectators, but he didn't say anything. After all, they weren't from his guild. Crossing the rope bridge was obviously more dangerous than crossing the wooden bridge. However, it was precisely because of this that the players were even more careful. This was not a difficult task in the game. Once they got serious, no one fell off. Previously, when Unscathed in battle crossed the wooden bridge, it was just that he made a lot of noise. There were other times when he accidentally bumped into something and fell off. Who would have thought that no one would fall at the seemingly difficult rope bridge? It was just that it was a little slow. One by one, it was finally the mercenary group's turn. The number of players standing on the cliff who had given up on the rope bridge was much higher than those who had given up on the wooden bridge. The purple crystal rebirth girls were stunned when they arrived. This test of courage was much more difficult than the previous ones. No matter how many voices tried to persuade them, it's a game, it's fine, it was of no use. Repeating this nonsense a few times to overcome the fear in your heart, do you think this is a TV drama? I'm really fine. Grape, let me show you. Yutian Shinming's favorite girl, Grape, was terrified. She shook her head and did not want to leave. Yutian Shinming tried to persuade her several times, but to no avail. Hence, he decided to demonstrate by himself. He grabbed the rope and leaped down. He tried his best to look relaxed, and from time to time, he would turn around and smile at Grape to encourage her. Look, it's easy. Come over here, Grape, shouted Yutian Shinming as he stood on the cliff. Grape looked around her timidly. The reincarnated amethyst girls had already crossed the bridge before Yutian Shinming. Those who remained did not gain any confidence from Yutian Shinming's crossing. They looked at each other and felt that they had more in common with the people standing at the cliff. Unsworn Sword stood at the edge of the cliff and shouted, "Is there anyone else who wants to cross?" The players on the other side of the cliff looked at each other. The child elite group members were in an uproar. Unscathed in battle was still there, and they did not know what to do. Get over here, don't drag us down. As the leader of the group, the Han family young master was the first to lose his temper. He threw the unfinished bottle of wine at Unsworn Sword. The bottle shattered on the ground, and the wine spilled all over the ground. Who else wants to cross? Hurry up. Unscathed in battle looked around. Fuck, I'm talking about you. Stop pretending. Come over here. The Han family young master grabbed another bottle of wine, but when he saw that it was full, he could not bear to throw it away. He quickly opened it and drank as much as he could. Unscathed in battle hesitated. It's fine, Brother Wushang. I'm already here. Are you sure you can't cross? Unsworn Sword smiled. Unscathed in battle looked at him and agreed. Unsworn Sword was about the same as him. If he could cross, why couldn't he? Unscathed in battle was not afraid of heights. He was mainly worried about his weight. In addition, he had broken the bridge once, so he felt even more insecure. Hurry up! Hurry up! Roared the Han family young master. Don't worry, it's fine. This bridge is much sturdier than the wooden one. Unsworn Sword comforted him. He had already heard of the story of unscathed in battle hanging sausages. One was sugar coating, and the other was a cannon. Finally, unscathed in battle made up his mind. He bent down and grabbed the rope tightly. He shouted, "I'm coming," and jumped down. Everyone applauded for unscathed in battle's vigor. Among the applause, Yutian Shinming shouted, "Unscathed in battle, you're a real man. Fall down." Unfortunately, this interference did not work. Unscathed in battle was too focused on crossing the rope bridge. He was the most focused out of all the players. His arms alternated, and he advanced half a meter with each step. His movements were precise and rhythmic, and his expression was as serious as a game boss. Everyone was dumbfounded. This guy was so focused and stubborn. If he fell down, how satisfying would that be? It was unknown if everyone's psychology had an effect, but when Zhan Wushang was 2/3 of the way across the bridge, everyone heard a crisp bang. The rope bridge suddenly snapped. He fell down. The crowd burst into tears of joy. Fuck you. Unscathed in battle's voice was mixed with the wind, coming from the mountains. Then, everyone heard a loud bang. The mountain path seemed to tremble because of this sound. Countless players who had already walked far away sent messages asking, "What's going on?" A weak shout came from the bottom of the mountain. "Hurry and pull me up." "Fuck, he hasn't fallen down yet. He's still holding on." Yutian Shinming was shocked. He crawled to the edge of the cliff and stretched his neck to take a look. Unscathed in battle's 2 hands were tightly holding onto the rope, and he was stuck to the mountain wall. "Stop holding on, go down!" shouted Yutian Shinming. "Just you wait, Yutian. I'll throw you down as soon as I get up," said Unscathed in battle angrily. "Too arrogant." Yutian Shinming pulled out an arrow and acted like he was going to break the rope. "Hurry and call me Grandpa Yutian." Alright, stop messing around." Gu Fei came over and pushed Yutian Shinming to the side. He called out to the others, "Hurry and pull this guy up." "Hold on tight, Unscathed," shouted Brother Yu, stretching his neck. With everyone's strength, Unscathed in battle was finally pulled up. He lay on the ground, panting heavily. There were wounds on his face, and his armor was also twisted from the collision. Han family young master used a healing spell to heal him. "How are you?" Yes. Unscathed in battle was out of breath. It was not because he was tired, but because he was too nervous. The kind of exhaustion that came from just escaping from a dangerous situation was not necessarily physical. "Alright, you've done the most for this part. I'll give you a few more points," said Han family young master, gesturing to Sword Demon. "Okay." Sword Demon also agreed. He took out a small notebook and wrote, "Mental compensation, 20 points." After a long time, Unscathed in battle finally got up from the ground. Yutian Shinming had the foresight to stay far away, but Unscathed in battle seemed to have seen through the mortal world and did not care about it at all. After he got up, he only asked, "Are we still going to cross the bridge later?" "I don't think so." Unsworn Sword smiled. "The brother in front said that we haven't seen it again." Oh, replied Unscathed in Battle. He waved his hand and said, let's go. As they continued forward, they did not encounter any more cliffs. The guild and mercenary groups quickly completed the statistics. There were many players who didn't cross the bridge because they didn't have the guts to cross and left the team. Especially since female players made up the majority of the group, this made many players feel extremely miserable. After that, there were no more strange situations. Just as they were about to finish crossing the Black Dragon Mountain Range, there was a sudden disturbance at the front of the team. Unscathed in Battle trembled. Is the mountain road broken again? No, we encountered an enemy, replied Han family young master. Pfft. What's there to be afraid of? Unscathed in Battle straightened his back again. Encountering an enemy here is a bit troublesome. The mountain road can't be paved with formations. So many players won't help. We are at the back of the team, we can't do anything at all, said Brother Yu. Do what? We don't even know what's going on. Yutian Shinming jumped up and down, but he still couldn't see the situation in front of him. What's the situation? Everyone could only ask Han family young master. The monsters that spawned are blocking the entrance of the mountain road. We can't go down, said Han family young master. What monsters? Bandits. What's there to be afraid of? Everyone looked at him with disdain. The boss is leading the team, Han family young master said calmly. Everyone's heart tightened. According to the game developers, the monsters around the boss would have a higher combat power than normal. Moreover, these monsters would listen to the boss commands. The boss's intelligence wasn't that high. No matter how smart it was, it couldn't compare to the cunning players. The problem was that when the monsters listened to the boss commands, the aggro system would lose its value. For example, the players usually liked to attract monsters. At this time, it would depend on the boss expression. If the boss didn't give the order, even if you killed the monsters, they wouldn't chase after you. There was no doubt about their discipline. The only weakness was the intelligence of the commander. What's the situation up front? A few people asked Han family young master. They've retreated. They're currently organizing people to charge out, said Han family young master. If that's the case, then we'll need experts. That's right. That's why they're calling us forward, said Han family young master. Chapter 281. Of course, Child Elite Group wasn't the only expert. The mercenary groups at the back also received the call. Reigning the Four Seas wanted to organize a team of elites to break through the blockade of the small monsters and then act according to their actions. Child Elite Group passed through the crowd and came to the front. They saw that the leaders of the various mercenary groups were already gathered there. Unsworn Sword smiled at them and said, "We'll have to rely on you guys this time." So it's like this, Han family young master said in the mercenary channel. Yes, he called everyone from the mercenary group up. He wants us to be the vanguard as cannon fodder. Brother, you could see it too. There's no other way. We still have to go, Sword Demon said calmly. This was indeed the mercenary group's helplessness. Sometimes, even if they knew they were cannon fodder, they still had to charge. Everyone, my skill lasts for 25 seconds. Let's make use of this time and charge. Silvermoon came out to speak. He was talking about his battle skill, King's Command. It was obvious that everyone was preparing to use their trump card at this time. The Child Elite Group didn't think that they would have the chance to experience Silvermoon's abnormal skill. They all sighed at the vicissitudes of life. However, if someone were to help, this skill can last a little longer, Silvermoon added. Everyone didn't understand. Unsworn Sword also came up to ask, Brother Silvermoon, what do you mean? Gu Fei followed Silvermoon's gaze and found that he was looking at Tsubasa Sakaratsuka. Tsubasa Sakaratsuka and the others were in Boundless Mang's formation. Could it be her? Gu Fei was deep in thought when he saw Mang Mang turn his head. Clearly, he had heard Silvermoon's words. She expressionlessly stretched out her hand and gave Silvermoon the middle finger. Gu Fei smiled and turned his head to the side. He heard Silvermoon say to Unsworn Sword, "It's nothing. I'm just afraid that I'll die and the skill will be interrupted." "Oh, don't worry about that." With a wave of his hand, Sword of Unsworn summoned 2 priests and pointed at Silvermoon. "You two will serve the Silvermoon brothers." With 2 clerics assigned to each player in a team battle, it was clear how much importance Silvermoon was placed on this skill. Melee classes, get ready. Archers and mages will provide support as appropriate, but make sure you don't hurt your own people, the commander, Shadow of Time, said. Warriors, thieves, and grandmasters of combat stepped forward and formed a temporary team. The knights began to give them blessings, and the priests were among them. The mages and archers retreated to the back of the team and waited. As the mountain path was narrow, they retreated far away and could not see the battlefield in front of them. "What blessing do you want, brother?" you asked Gu Fei with a smile. Gu Fei poked the ground with his shuriken and casually stood among the melee professions. The surrounding players all looked at him with admiration and whispered, "Is he really a melee mage?" Lua Lua walked over with her staff and smiled. "Do you want a professional cleric?" After she finished speaking, she had already touched the healing spell. "Don't waste it." Gu Fei wiped his sweat. "Just take care of the girls." "Them? I don't think there's a need." Lua Lua laughed. Gu Fei looked over and saw Slender dance, July, fiercely under the willow, June rain, and the other girls who were ready to join the battle were surrounded by a large group of priests, ready to please them. "Do whatever you want." Gu Fei was speechless and looked at the battlefield in front of him. A few meters away, the group of bandits blocked the entrance of the mountain path. After breaking through, there was a plain in front of them. The players spread out and did not need to be afraid of these level 30 creatures. "Isn't the boss leading the team?" "Where is it?" Gu Fei asked. "Isn't that the one?" Lua Lua reached out and pointed. Gu Fei looked over there. Sure enough, there was a bandit dressed majestically, very different from the other thieves. After taking a closer look, Gu Fei realized. "Isn't that Suatu? I couldn't recognize him with his clothes on." The players all looked at him. Did this person have an unspeakable relationship with Suatu? Time waited for no man. The journey to the Black Dragon Mountain Range had taken up a lot of time, and many players were already in a hurry to go offline. After the players quickly finished preparing, Reflection of Time gave them some instructions. Charge straight from the side. Don't tangle with the boss first. The players rubbed their palms and Reflection of Time straightened his arm. Foresees archers, get ready. Let's give the enemy a taste. Fire. At his command, countless arrows flew over the players' heads and toward the group of bandits. Let's go. The melee players roared and charged after the arrows with their weapons. Silver Moon raised his Sword of the King and was about to receive the king's command when 2 figures, one black and one red, rushed out faster than the others. Reflection of Time slapped his thigh in anger. This ragtag army was no good. They had no discipline at all. Don't charge. Team, team. Reflection of Time was still shouting. The 2 people in front looked at each other, looked behind them, and shouted together, keep up. How could they keep up? There were many warriors in this team. Even if they were on steroids, they wouldn't be able to keep up with Gu Fei and Slender Waist Dance. For example, Sword Demon was fast, but he knew how to coordinate with the others. It wasn't that Gu Fei didn't understand. He didn't plan to charge at first, but Slender Waist Dance took the lead. Gu Fei vaguely felt like he was going against the reincarnated Amethysts Guild. His blood boiled, and he immediately charged out. At this time, the arrows released by the archers in the back had already landed in the bandits' formation. Of course, the bandits who were attacked would not fight back. Suatu waved his broadsword, and the bandits roared as they rushed forward. In the blink of an eye, they were already in close combat with Gu Fei and Slender Waist Dance. Dual Flame Flash, Flash! Gu Fei roared, twisting his body as he took a step forward. In the blink of an eye, he was already in the middle of the bandit formation. Flames formed a circle around him, causing the other players to be speechless. Is this double flame flash or whirlwind slash? Slender Waist Dance didn't show any weakness. She didn't even need to use any skills. Most of her normal attacks were taken care of with one slash. Her efficiency was also very high. Right after Gu Fei's dual flame flash ended, Slender Waist Dance flashed to his side and quickly took care of the bandits that came close. She even said to Gu Fei proudly, "Hee hee, your skills are on cooldown, right?" The other players were dumbfounded. Reflection Years pinched his thigh. Damn, these two have no discipline. How can they cooperate? Even though he couldn't use skills, Gu Fei was still very strong. His sword flashed, and the bandits around him were stabbed until they bled. He was able to repel half of the attacks, and the other half was up to Slender Waist Dance. Soon, his skills were off cooldown. Make way. After Gu Fei said this, Slender Waist Dance understood and charged to the side. Gu Fei chanted, and dual flame flash whistled through the air, clearing the area around him once more. Reflection Years pinched his thigh again and shouted at the two, "Charge out, charge out." The other players had already started fighting with the bandits. Influenced by Gu Fei and Slender Waist Dance, their blood boiled as they slaughtered everything in their path. The level 30 monsters seemed very weak in front of these experts. Great Thief Suatu waved his sword, and the bandits began to retreat as they fought. The players were proud. That was easy. Was there a need to break through? They were directly annihilated here. Just as they were about to push the bandits back, Suatu suddenly raised his sword again. The bandits, who had been on the verge of defeat, suddenly became spirited again. They roared again and fought the players with their weapons. The players were suddenly attacked from multiple directions. They calmed down and looked at the situation. They shouted, "Fuck! It's a pocket formation." Reflection Years pinched his thigh again. The bandits couldn't withstand the players' charge and retreated. After retreating a gap, they suddenly began to counterattack, and the bandits on the left and right sides launched a pincer attack. Chapter 282. The Han family young master, who was in the middle of the battle, could only shake his head. Even the reflection of time could see how much trouble Gu Fei was in by talking about an apple. How could he not know? From the very beginning, the Han family young master did not see Gu Fei as a hope. He knew that Gu Fei did not have enough mana to fight his way out of the encirclement. It would have been easier if the encirclement had been set up by players. With Gu Fei's destructive power, he could scare people away by shouting double flame flash. Unfortunately, these were system bandits, and they were much more fearless than players. Countless people felt helpless towards Gu Fei. Gu Fei suddenly seemed to have woken up again. He jumped back into the formation with the apple in his mouth. He swung the night streamer in his hand and chanted as he spat out the apple. The flames of double flame flash formed a circle. The players were stunned. When they came back to their senses, they all looked at the half-apple that Gu Fei had thrown on the ground. What kind of apple was that? Did he recover his mana in just a short while? Many people tried to resist the urge to pick up the half-apple to see what it was. Gu Fei's performance was far from over. He returned to the formation, and Slim Waist Dance immediately came over to work with him. She asked curiously, "You recovered mana so quickly?" "Yes, that's strange." Gu Fei was puzzled as well. While he was talking, his mana was still recovering. With his shallow knowledge of the game, he couldn't explain it at all. All he could do was use his mana as much as he could. Raising the night streamer, Gu Fei pointed to the side and chanted, "Wall of electricity, descend." In an instant, the air became thin, and electric currents crisscrossed. The flanks crackled for a long time, and the players were all shocked, but in the end, nothing happened. Gu Fei was at a loss. The array should have interweaved into a wall of electricity, so why was there nothing in the end? When the Han family young master saw how arrogant Gu Fei was, he also felt that something was amiss. Moreover, he had seen the tacit cooperation between Gu Fei and Slim Waist Dance many times, so he quickly sent him a message. Use an area of effect spell to make a path. Immediately. Gu Fei replied. The wall of electric current consumed a lot of energy. At this moment, he did not have enough magic power. However, the recovery did not stop. Not long after, it had already risen again. Gu Fei did not think about it for a moment. He swung his sword and released a flaming 3,000 layers flame. The slow casting of the spell didn't improve at all, and after a while, flames rose from the ground. With a crash, a group of bandits collapsed. The Han family young master was exasperated. Why are you using this? Use the heavenly fire wheel. Huh? Gu Fei was startled. Looking at the situation in front of him, he immediately smacked his head. The flaming 3,000 layers flame had a continuous burning effect for 5 seconds. He was famous for instantly killing mages. No players dared to step on the ground that was ignited by the flaming 3,000 layers flame. However, the bandits were fearless. They stepped on the sea of fire and rushed up, filling up the empty space in an instant. Gu Fei learned from his mistake. After replenishing his magic power, he raised his sword and released the heavenly fire wheel. The ground was cleared again. This time, the players did not let go of the opportunity. They took the opportunity to cut in and finally tore a hole in the bandits' encirclement. Do you still have magic power? Continue, the Han family young master shouted at Gu Fei. Endless. Gu Fei was proud. The heavenly fire wheel was still on cooldown. Gu Fei extended his hand and teleported into the group of bandits. He swung his sword, turned around, and used the dual flame sword to clear a small circle. Slender Waist Dance immediately rushed into the circle and maintained it with him. The other players also instinctively chased after their footsteps. Okay. They're coming again. Gu Fei slashed a few people with his sword. The heavenly fire wheel's cooldown was over, and he immediately chanted again. The attacks that could have interrupted his chanting were all blocked by Slender Waist Dance, who was protecting him. The heavenly fire wheel was successfully summoned. Fiercely landed with a boom, and the ground was cleared again. The players were also excited. They came up to protect Gu Fei and shouted, "What are you charging for? Just kill all the monsters." Good idea. Gu Fei smiled at the players. He swung his sword and used dual flame flash to clear a row of monsters. He was obviously a little carried away. Just then, a message notification rang out. Gu Fei opened it and saw that it was actually a vast expanse of grass. Hey, you better hold on tight. My magic power is about to run out. Gu Fei was startled. He searched the crowd for the vast expanse. He quickly found it not far away. The girl was also charging forward with the team, but the staff in her hand was pointed at Gu Fei. When she saw Gu Fei look over, she smiled and said, "Is this really a free lunch from the sky?" Although Gu Fei didn't know what happened, he knew that his magic power recovery had a lot to do with the vast expanse. Hearing the meaning behind Mang Mang's words, it was impossible for his reply to be endless. Thus, he didn't dare to waste any more of it. As the saying went, good steel should be used on the blade. Although the dual flame flash was very satisfying and Gu Fei liked it, he knew that using the heavenly fire wheel would be more beneficial to the team. Then, he restrained his urge to attack. When the heavenly fire wheel's cooldown was over, he obediently threw another one down. Everyone, charge! Gu Fei raised his sword and pointed forward, leading the charge like a commander. He was really worried that the players would be stubborn and wait for him to kill all the bandits. Reality proved that the players weren't so stubborn. When they saw that Gu Fei was still determined to break out of the encirclement, they continued to kill. Just like that, Gu Fei used the heavenly fire will to blast open a gap. The players swarmed into the empty space, stabbing into the bandits' formation like a steel knife. After Gu Fei threw 2 more heavenly fire wheels, he was about to break out of the encirclement. The vast expanse of magic power had been burned out, and Gu Fei's magic power recovery had stopped. He had half a tube of magic power left, but it was enough for him to use 2 more heavenly fire wheels. The players were full of joy. As long as they could open up a path, they could continue to break out of the encirclement. Then, they could spread out in the wide field outside. These level 30 bandits weren't even worth mentioning. It was beautiful. Suddenly, there was a roar from the bandits' formation. Suatu had finally exploded. He flew up and jumped over countless people's heads, landing in front of Gu Fei, blocking the players' path. The players' hearts skipped a beat. Suatu, who had been giving orders all this time, was finally going to make a move. Suatu's subordinates were all around level 30, but this boss was really strong. Moreover, he was a quest-type boss. Only those who accepted the relevant quest and killed their way into the depths of the Black Dragon Cave would have the chance to encounter him. Otherwise, the depths of the Black Dragon Cave would just be an empty house. Quest bosses were stronger than wild bosses of the same level. This was the current understanding of the players. Normally, when 2 armies were about to fight, the subordinates should be standing on the side, waving flags and cheering. However, Suatu's subordinates didn't follow the rules. Their boss had already jumped over, but they were still attacking and killing the players. The players continued to resist, but they didn't know what to do with Suatu's day. At this time, they were trapped in a heavy encirclement. The surrounding monsters were too busy to deal with, and they really didn't have the time to deal with the boss. How could a boss be dealt with by just a few people? Normally, they would make ample preparations, coordinate their classes, and coordinate well. Even so, they would often die in battle, let alone in this chaotic situation where they couldn't spare any manpower. The players were fearfully considering whether or not they should retreat, but Gu Fei had already rushed forward with his sword. "You're crazy." Even Slender Waist Dance was shocked. No matter how strong she was, she didn't think that she had the ability to solo a boss. She didn't think that Gu Fei would actually dare to do such a thing. "It's not my first time. I'm very familiar with it." Gu Fei turned around and smiled. He had already jumped up and slashed at Suatu's day. Suatu still acted like a boss. He suddenly shrugged his shoulders in a very elegant manner. Flash of beauty. Gu Fei had a very deep impression of his first solo experience with a boss. Suatu shrugged his shoulders, and he immediately thought of Suatu's ultimate skill. As for how strong this skill was, Gu Fei actually didn't know, because Suatu hadn't hit him at all. However, the current Gu Fei was far from the level 30 he was back then. At level 30, Gu Fei's skills were already on par with Suatu's. Now, he was even faster than this guy. He immediately stretched out his hand. Before Suatu could even use his ultimate skill, Gu Fei had already stabbed him again. Gu Fei's plan was to interrupt Suatu's skill, but he didn't think that Suatu's mysterious ultimate skill wasn't a spell. Its priority wasn't low enough to be interrupted by a single stab. He shrugged his shoulders and swung his sword. A red light flashed out like a blade cutting through the ground. Gu Fei dodged it, but a scream came from behind him. A player was hit head-on and died on the spot. In reality, the current players could still withstand this flash of beauty. The problem was that this guy was a bit unlucky. He had been fighting for a long time, and his health wasn't full. Moreover, he was charging at the front, so there was no priest to take care of him. Everyone be careful. Gu Fei continued to attack Suatu as he reminded everyone. Since Flash of Beauty couldn't be interrupted, that was all he could do. He couldn't just rush up and block the knife himself, right? Gu Fei estimated that with his weak body, he probably wouldn't be able to withstand the beating of Flash of Beauty. The players continued to fight the bandits, while watching this crazy guy fight Suatu alone. In the end, everyone went crazy. Gu Fei actually fought Suatu alone, and he didn't seem to be at a disadvantage. The most important thing was that Gu Fei could dodge all of Suatu's attacks. This skill was too magical, and all the players were in a state of confusion. Chapter 283. Seeing that they were about to break out of the encirclement, Suatu's attack interrupted the players' momentum. Although Gu Fei had single-handedly dealt with Suatu and caused confusion among the players, it was clear that he didn't have the ability to deal with Suatu easily. Suatu was wearing clothes today. The players' formation was in a strip shape, deeply inserted into the bandits' formation. If they went deeper, Suatu blocked their way. If they retreated, they didn't want to go so deep. Fortunately, there were quite a number of players, and the players who joined the fray created a lot of space for the players behind them. Some of the mages had also arrived at the front, looking for an opportunity to cast their spells. Both sides were in a mess, and the mages were afraid that they would blow up their own people. Let me try. Drifting, known as the #1 mage in the parallel world, finally came out. He held his staff and was full of confidence. If he wanted to cast spells on the enemies in seconds like Gu Fei, he had to rush to the front of the battlefield. In that kind of chaotic situation, even if his own people accidentally bumped into the mage, his casting would be interrupted, not to mention the bandits. Gu Fei dared to cast the Heavenly Firewall because he had Slender Waist Dance, the #1 mage in the parallel world, as his guard. Moreover, he wasn't at a disadvantage in a one-on-one fight with the boss. Just find some people to protect me while I cast spells, Drifting said with a smile. While Reflection Years was wondering what kind of formation could be as good as Slender Waist Dance's guard, Silvermoon waved her hand and said, "You three go." The three heavily armed warriors beside him carried their shields and came to Drifting. Drifting was surprised and said, "Heavy armored warriors? Can they resist?" "Don't worry," Silvermoon said to Drifting, "their defense is very high." Then, Drifting was protected by the three heavy-armored warriors and went into the enemy's formation. Drifting heard the sound of their shields being attacked, but they didn't move. Drifting was in the middle of the formation and wasn't disturbed at all. Heavenly Fire Wheel, descend. Drifting finally released a spell. Between the #1 mage in the parallel world and Gu Fei, no one knew whose spell was more powerful. This was because when the drifting heaven-descending flame wheels landed on the ground, they were all instantly killed without any suspense. Drifting was a standard canon mage. He put all his points into intelligence and strived to achieve the highest magic damage. His equipment either increased intelligence or increased spell damage. The staff he wielded was also an extraordinary item. After accumulating countless equipment points, he now had the strength to instantly kill a level 30 bandit. His style of advancing step by step was bound to be a kind of eternal strength. As for Gu Fei, he only relied on 2 pieces of equipment and walked the path of the vanguard. Right now, he seemed very strong, but sooner or later, he would fall behind. Just like that, under the protection of the 3 heavily armored warriors, Drifting cast spells without worry and led another group of players to carve out a path. While the others were shocked by Drifting's Gao Fa's hang, Drifting was surprised by the 3 fellows beside him. Not only did the 3 of them possess terrifying defensive power, but they were also quite professional in terms of bodyguard work. The 3 of them completely followed Drifting's pace and didn't collide with him at all. They also didn't let any attacks from the outside touch Drifting. There wasn't a second Suatu that jumped out to intercept them. This party's slaughter went smoothly, and they finally completed the task that Reflection of Years had asked them to break out of the encirclement. A path opened up in the crowd, and a large number of players who were stuck on the mountain path, unable to display their skills, began to rush out through this path. After leaving the mountain road, the players felt that the world was so vast. They broke out of the encirclement and zigzagged around the bandits. The sounds of killing shook the heavens. The players had been anxious on the mountain road but couldn't help. They had been hungry for a long time, and now, they bravely took the lead, displaying a bravery that was comparable to that of the NPCs. In front of the level 40 players, the level 30 bandit was just a plaything. After losing the advantage of numbers, there was no need to describe what happened to them. Time's reflection kept reminding him, be careful, be careful. He was worried that the players would be too hot-blooded. After all, this was a battle. If they weren't careful, they would inevitably die. The bandits were destroyed at an extremely high speed. On the other side, the duel between Gu Fei and Suatu showed no signs of ending. Suatu's defense was vastly different now that he was wearing clothes. The dark stream sword's physical attacks could only scrape a layer of skin. After using dual flame flash twice, Gu Fei had already put away his sword and switched to Flame's baptism. Flames continued to fly, and from time to time, the ring of thunder suppression on his finger would be used. The most visually beautiful lightning flashed on the blade, and there was even a crackling sound effect. No one knew how much damage the blade did, but Suatu was twitching like he was doing a breakdance. The players were dumbfounded, trying to figure out what kind of godly item Gu Fei's blade was. The baptism of fire was a level 30 outdated weapon. The players immediately saw it with their identification skill. At the same time, they carefully studied the OP magician's equipment. Apart from the clothes with question marks, everything else was really ordinary. In the eyes of the average player, this was more entertainment than practical, especially for the players who valued stability. This was especially true for players who valued stability. They hated the word probability the moment they heard it. Awesome. Too awesome. There was nothing special about the equipment. Everyone could only admire Gu Fei's skills. His skills were actually quite simple. He just dodged all of the opponent's attacks. This was the reason why Gu Fei was able to contend with Suatu. The players didn't know what to say. They could only stare with their eyes wide open. Do you need any help? Some people still raised their doubts. This reminded the players what Gu Fei was fighting. It was a boss. If he didn't take the initiative to snatch a boss when he saw one, could he be considered a qualified MMORPG player? Shouts erupted from the group of players once again. Hurry up and help. Everyone shouted out such a righteous reason as they pounced forward to snatch the boss. Bosses represented a beautiful amount of experience, a full purse, and the possibility of gold and purple-colored equipment. In the face of profit, team, discipline, and character were abandoned by countless players. They rushed towards Suatu as if they had seen their own father. Gu Fei was puzzled as to why none of the players came up to help. Now that he saw everyone rush forward like a volcano, he felt very comforted. The countless attacks made Suatu flustered. He didn't deal with Gu Fei's attacks as carefully as before. After Gu Fei slashed at Suatu twice, he felt bored. He waved his sleeves, wiped his sweat, and retreated from the battle. Countless players' eyes were about to fall to the ground. Many people couldn't rush into the boss's safe circle and felt bitter because they couldn't take a hit from the boss. However, Gu Fei casually retreated from the front lines. If you didn't have the strength to fight the boss, you wouldn't have the ability to take advantage of the situation. However, Gu Fei had the strength to solo the boss. He suddenly gave up. Countless people felt that this guy was different from the rest. Several members of the child elite group came up and started to criticize and educate Gu Fei. With their understanding of Gu Fei, they knew that this guy was just as the players thought. He didn't care about the rewards that the boss would drop, so he just gave it up. Gu Fei ate a banana while listening to them talk. After a few bites, he said, "Rewards? That's nothing. But I think I've heard of a rule where the loot is decided by the damage dealt." They were slightly startled. "Brother, you looked at the battle. Oh, there are so many people and the attacks are so messy. It seems like no one can deal more damage than you." But Brother Yu immediately changed the topic, that's only if we're not in the same team. We were in a team with a few people, so we don't have to follow this rule. Oh, I didn't join the team. Gu Fei said. You didn't join the team? Everyone was shocked. Yes, I saw that the person who invited me was Silvermoon, so I declined. Gu Fei said. At the time, they had formed a team for Silvermoon's skill, King's Command. Battle formation skills were based on the team. Players who weren't in the same team wouldn't receive the buffs from these skills. When Silvermoon had formed a team for the battle, Gu Fei saw that it was his name in the system prompt and didn't think much about it before rejecting it. The child elite group understood the whole story and looked at the group of players bullying Suo Tuesday. They only felt that it was funny. Only Brother Yu was still a little worried. The person who dealt the last blow will get a very high damage score. If it happens to be someone in the team who gets it, then their team's points might surpass yours. There's nothing we can do about it. Who knows when the last blow will be? Gu Fei said helplessly. Maybe right now. Yutian Shenming joked. Really? Gu Fei cooperated with him. He pulled out the Night Streak sword and swung it towards the sky, chanting, "Lightning, descend." A bolt of lightning descended from the sky and struck the group of players, hitting Suo Tu right on top of his head. Suo Tu's hair stood up like a beard from the lightning strike. Smoke rose from his body and he convulsed for the last time before finally collapsing. The child elite group members, including Gu Fei, were all dumbfounded. What a coincidence! Gu Fei muttered to himself. This time it's definitely yours. You can't run away. The others said. There's really nothing we can do. Gu Fei sighed and pushed the crowd aside. What did he drop? What did he drop? The players who had been busy for half a day glared at him. We were all wrong. This person was too despicable and shameless. Chapter 284. Gu Fei rushed up to pick up the loot, but the players were angry and deliberately ignored him. Gu Fei shouted, excuse me. Everyone only gave him a back view and pretended to look into the circle. Suo Tu's subordinates might be a group of level 30 lackeys, but Suo Tu himself wasn't a level 30 boss. Otherwise, how could the thief Suo Tu quest be so difficult when the players were all level 30? Thus, the equipment that Suo Tu dropped definitely wouldn't be outdated. Moreover, a bag of money and 2 pieces of equipment had fallen from Suo Tu's bag onto the ground. The players saw it, but because of the system protection, they couldn't pick it up. This was the most painful thing in the game, and the farthest distance between players. Guys, try to persuade him. Gu Fei said helplessly to Unsworn Sword and Reflected Time. Both of them could be considered as the head stewards. The two had a serious expression on their faces, but they were gloating in their hearts. But since Gu Fei had said it, they couldn't just ignore it. Reflected Time said awkwardly, this kind of thing, it's really hard to persuade him. You see, Reflected Time was trying to stall for time. The system protection had a time limit. If it was picked up after the time limit, how could he get it back? This was the most unrealistic dream in the game. But Gu Fei was a straightforward person. When he heard Reflected Time's hesitation, he shook his head inside. Then there's nothing we can do. The two were feeling pleased with themselves when Reflected Time suddenly had a thought. This guy isn't going to start a massacre, is he? At present, although everyone seemed to be comrades, the enmity between them was only temporarily suppressed. He himself was gnashing his teeth against Gu Fei. In his mind, Gu Fei was a despicable and violent person who killed people without blinking an eye. At this time, it was not surprising that he killed everyone. Hey! Reflected Time was about to speak when he saw Gu Fei suddenly jump up and point at the crowd. Teleport, move! Gu Fei disappeared. In the middle of the crowd, a group of players squeezed to and fro. When they heard that the main character was blocked by the crowd, everyone was very excited. They looked at Suatu's corpse and drooled. Drooling over corpses was something that often happened in the game. Just as Suatu was counting the time with his fingers and getting ready to fight with the other people around him, his vision suddenly blurred, and a person directly stepped on Suatu's day. The crowd turned pale with fright. Gu Fei smiled at everyone as if there was no one else present. "Let's see what we have." Gu Fei smiled as he picked up the pouch and the two pieces of equipment from the ground under everyone's pained gazes. Then, he started searching Suatu's corpse. In the game, items would sometimes drop directly from defeated NPCs, and sometimes they would be found by the players themselves. Occasionally, a boss would be killed, and their fates would be very tragic. The players wanted to cut them up to find the items, but the system didn't allow for such a bloody scene. The players could only carefully search the boss from the front, side, and back. Just like this, every time they killed a boss, it would be like they were taking turns on the boss. Gu Fei didn't go that far. He looked through Suatu's pockets to see if there was anything, then got up. He did not intend to search carefully under the watchful eyes of so many people. He had already eaten the meat, but he still didn't want to leave a single drop of soup. Gu Fei felt like he was going to be drowned in the sea of people's war. "Excuse me, let me out." Gu Fei's smile didn't change. This time, the players were no longer in the mood to stop him. They listlessly moved aside, and Gu Fei calmly squeezed his way out. Halfway through, Suatu's system protection time ran out, and he was instantly treated cruelly. When the crowd dispersed, the once famous great thief Suatu was only wearing a pair of system-mandated underwear. He lay on the ground miserably, facing the yellow soil with his back to the sky, waiting for the system's white light to receive him. What did he drop? After Gu Fei returned to his party, a group of acquaintances surrounded him. Gu Fei first threw the money bag to Yutian Shinming, "Count it." Then he took out two other items. Thief's ring, purple equipment, strength plus 12, agility plus 12. Looking at the name and the attributes, this item didn't look like a mage equipment. Yutian Shinming, slender waist dancer, sword demon, and even unscathed in battle were all salivating. In the end, Gu Fei excitedly put it on his finger, and then he took out the ring of burning, which had a fire enchantment rate of 7%, and showed it to everyone. "Does anyone want it?" No one said anything. So Gu Fei took out another similar ring from his pocket and showed it to everyone, a pair. "Get lost." Everyone cursed. The other item wasn't an equipment, but a skill scroll. Great Thief Suatu naturally dropped shift-type skills as well. Gu Fei regretfully showed it to everyone. Eternal Skill Scroll, Stealth Action. Forcibly maintains stealth state, consumes 7% of maximum mana per second, cooldown time, 2 minutes 30 seconds. Class, Godly Thief. This. Everyone was stunned. Is there a godly thief? Gu Fei was already shouting at the top of his lungs. Give it to me. Slender Waist Dancer was practically pouncing on Gu Fei. Gu Fei dodged and handed it to her, saying, "Then I'll write off my debt with you." Cough. Cough. Brother Yu coughed loudly, but Slender Waist Dancer had already taken the scroll from Gu Fei's hand and rolled her eyes at him. "What are you yelling for? I know this is worth much more than the teleportation I gave him." Brother Yu felt ashamed. He coughed as a hint while quickly writing a message to Gu Fei. But seeing Slender Waist Dancer's sincerity, she didn't seem to have any intentions of taking advantage of him. Slender Waist Dancer took the scroll and used it. She then dug out her pocket and took out 2 bags of money. After counting them, she threw them to Gu Fei. "This is 1,500 gold coins, plus the 1,500 you still owe me. 3,000 gold coins for this scroll, isn't that a good deal?" Slender Waist Dancer was talking to Gu Fei, but her eyes were looking at Brother Yu. Brother Yu was embarrassed and once again lowered his head in shame. "That's about it." Gu Fei smiled as he took the bags of money. "About it? This is a high price." Slender Waist Dancer roared as she pounced on him. "High price, high price." Gu Fei hurriedly agreed and didn't want to argue with her. He didn't know how much this thing was worth, but he could tell that it was very valuable. Currently, stealth could be said to be the thief's skill with the weakest priority. Any random attack would interrupt it. However, this skill basically raised stealth's priority to an invincible state. Regardless of whether the player was attacked or attacked, stealth wouldn't be interrupted. It was a nightmarish skill. On the other side, Yutian Xinming, an unscathed in battle, saw Gu Fei put the bag of money into his pocket. Their eyes were red and they said sourly, "Even a beauty's money." Scum. Yes, beast. The two echoed each other. How about we split it? Gu Fei asked. The two were overjoyed. Okay. Scram, scum, beast. Gu Fei said. At this point, the trip to Black Dragon Mountain Range had come to an end. It could be said that Gu Fei had made great contributions in building the rope bridge along the way, as well as the final charge. Even though drifting was the one who opened the passage, if it wasn't for Gu Fei single-handedly taking down Suo Tu, drifting would have definitely died. The players understood this, but Gu Fei took all of Suo Tu's loot. This made everyone feel resentful. In the end, they didn't feel grateful at all. Instead, they cursed Gu Fei to die a horrible death. After leaving the mountain road and walking on the vast plains for a while, the silhouette of Moonlit City appeared in front of them. Everyone let out a sigh of relief. They had finally passed the first stage of this quest. As for what benefits they received in the process, everyone felt resentful towards Gu Fei. Moonlit City. Gu Fei was filled with emotion. June Rain was even more emotional than Gu Fei. To be honest, June Rain had spent more time in Moonlit City than in Cloud City. She was familiar with this place. Seeing that there were players in front of them, June Rain took out a piece of cloth from her pocket and quickly covered her face. Little Rain, what are you doing? A girl asked curiously. Everyone here is like this. June Rain said with certainty. The others were confused and asked her the reason. June Rain couldn't answer and only said that everyone here was like this. Gu Fei remembered that the last time he was here, there were masked robbers, but everyone is like this, was far from it. Everyone continued to walk forward in confusion. In the blink of an eye, they had stepped into the leveling area. Looking up, it was just as June Rain said. Everyone's face was covered with a piece of cloth. What's going on? Everyone thought it was funny. When the masked men saw the sudden appearance of such a large group, they all stopped what they were doing. Some of them had already slowly retreated and were whispering nervously together. What's going on? Why are there so many people? Damn, does that trash have such a strong background? Damn, we're in trouble. What a big scene. Is that kid from the 10 Guild Alliance? I don't see any badge on him. Damn, he can't be one of those bastards who pretends to be weak, right? This time we're screwed. But these people don't seem to have the badge of the 10 Guild Alliance. Damn, other than the 10 Guild Alliance, who else can make such a big scene? Let's get out of here. In just a moment, most of the people in the leveling area had left. What appeared in front of everyone was a desolate place. It was a stark contrast to the fierce competition in every leveling area in Cloud City. Everyone was at a loss. In the end, it was the 3 leaders of Reigning the 4 Seas who came out and said, "Everyone, it's getting late. Let's hurry up and enter the city. Everyone in the mercenary group, please take note in Moonlit City. We'll take some time tomorrow to review the rewards for the journey." Boss unsworn. Suddenly, a mercenary group member came out and said, "Speaking of which, your quest seems to be to escort something, right? Why do I suddenly realize that we don't seem to be escorting anything along the way?" Chapter 285. The comrades in the mercenary group were all experts in missions. They knew that in this kind of escort mission, the escorted items usually couldn't be put in the player's pocket. They had to be carried, or carried. In short, the items had to be placed in broad daylight. But along the way, they didn't see anyone in the formation of the 4 Cs carrying such items. But it was an indisputable fact that they had a mission. The bandits' charge at the mountain pass, the cut-off Black Dragon Mountain's mountain path, and Suatu's interception at the end, these weren't the usual scenes. It was obviously because of the mission. At this time, they had already reached the first stop. Finally, someone couldn't help but ask the question in his heart. He thought he had asked a very important question, but who knew that everyone was looking at him with strange eyes? This person was very puzzled. Although his friends usually called him Xiao Bai, this question wasn't Xiao Bai at all. Was there something wrong? Just as he was puzzled, Unsworn Sword smiled and said to him, "Brother, did your leader not come to meet with us today for a meeting? Or did he forget to tell you?" Leader? This person was slightly startled. He felt that this title was unfamiliar to him. After a long time, he reacted and looked at Tsubasa Sakaratsuka, who was stuck like mud in the boundless wilderness. Tsubasa Sakaratsuka was very busy and had no time to pay attention to him. So no one paid attention to him anymore, and the team continued to march in the direction of Moonlit Night City. After this journey, the players of Cloud City who came to Moonlit Night City for the first time had a very intuitive understanding of the customs here. Along the way, they encountered a total of 5 group fights and 17 solo fights. Apart from that, some of the fights happened in places that were relatively far away, and the players couldn't see clearly. Such a fierce folk custom left the players of Cloud City speechless. As for why they had to cover their faces, they now had a preliminary understanding of it. Because of the 22 fights they saw along the way, 7 of them didn't resolve the problem properly because they covered their faces. They could only hear people shouting, "I'll recognize you even if you turn into ashes," and then a fight broke out. The funny thing was that in 2 of the fights, their masks accidentally fell off. As a result, both sides were stunned and cursed, "Who the fuck are you?" But in the end, they didn't laugh it off because it was a misunderstanding. Both sides tied up their masks and continued fighting. Old grudges had yet to be resolved, but new grievances had arisen. Persevering to the end, PK tirelessly. The members of the Cloud City organization were all veteran players. At this time, all of them were full of curiosity as they watched the scene unfold before them. However, this 1,000-man team was a spectacular sight. Wherever they passed, Moonlit City's players would immediately retreat and watch from afar. Naturally, everyone was discussing it in private. For example, Gu Fei and the others from the child elite group who had been to Moonlit Night City, they were naturally discussing how the culture of Moonlit Night City had evolved. Those who had lived in Moonlit Night City for a long time, such as Willow and June's Reign, were now full of nostalgia for returning to their homeland. There was also Silvermoon, who had a grudge with the entire city, and had unknowingly pulled a piece of cloth over her face. Boundless Mang, who was originally the same as him, did not dress up like this, and continued to march among the group. Soon, the group arrived at the gates of Moonlit Night City. Unsworn Sword gave his final speech, "Now, everyone can disperse. 7:00 tomorrow night. We'll meet at this place on time." "No problem, right?" The players responded and dispersed at the city gate. This quest was the same as the previous matches, chosen to be carried out after 7:00 at the prime time. However, not all players only had time to play during this time every day. For example, the child elite group, apart from Gu Fei, everyone else seemed to be living in a game. At this time, when they arrived at Moonlit Night City, the quest was suspended, but these players still had to continue playing. However, after walking this way, everyone had fully understood that Moonlit Night City was not a safe place. They did not have as much freedom as they usually did in Cloud City. For example, the 5 people from the child elite group were currently discussing where to farm monsters and do quests at night. "Qianli, what about you?" The 5 people muttered in the guild channel, asking Gu Fei in passing. "I'm going offline," Gu Fei said. The 5 already knew, so they didn't say anything. People like Gu Fei, who logged off on time, made up the majority of the players. However, these 1,000 players in front of him were all outstanding talents and experts of Cloud Peak City. Experts in the game were usually built up over time. Amongst these 1,000 players, the ones who logged off were the weakest. Gu Fei and the girls from Amethyst Rebirth were part of the offline party. While the other players who were about to go offline were still asking around for directions to the resurrection point, 6 Months Rain and Under Willow were familiar with the route. June Rain acted as the host and led the girls to the resurrection point. Under Willow, the native of Moonlit Night City, was rather quiet. She stared at a spot, quietly took out a dagger from her pocket, and activated stealth. Just as she took a step forward, she suddenly felt a light tap on her shoulder, and her stealth was broken. Under Willow angrily turned around to look. It was Gu Fei. "What are you trying to do?" Gu Fei smiled. Under Willow used her gaze to speak. The direction she was looking at was Boundless Mang, who was standing at the intersection of the street. "My friend from Moonlit Night City said that she and Silvermoon were missing. So they ran to Cloud City." Under Willow said angrily, "I should have known. Silvermoon is already in Cloud City. How could she not be here?" During the tournament, Silvermoon had already made a name for herself in Cloud City. However, Under Willow only had a grudge with Boundless Mang, so she didn't vent her anger on Silvermoon. Although Boundless Mang was unknown in Cloud City, she had interacted with the girls from Amethyst before. How could Under Willow not have heard of her? Gu Fei was curious. After asking, Under Willow was also at a loss. "When?" "Yeah, the day after we leveled up together," Gu Fei said as he reminisced. "That time." Under Willow also recalled and quickly reacted, "After that day, I fell sick and didn't play for a few days." Oh. Gu Fei also recalled. That day, Under Willow was indeed in a bad state and looked like she was going to collapse at any time. "So you don't know anything?" Gu Fei then briefly explained how Boundless Mang and Silvermoon came to Cloud City. Under Willow indeed did not know. The story of Silvermoon and Boundless Mang was also talked about by the girls for 2 to 3 days. However, it happened that Under Willow was not online. By the time she came back, this topic was already old and no one was talking about it anymore. Thus, Lu Xia was kept in the dark until the Silver Moon mercenary group became famous during the competition. Only then did he know that Silver Moon had also come to Cloud City. As for seeing Boundless Mang, that was today. Along the way, Under Willow was thinking about how to deal with Boundless Mang. But at this moment, after listening to Gu Fei's narration, she began to hesitate. Silvermoon was undoubtedly extremely hateful, especially since Gu Fei could reveal a lot of information that other girls didn't know. Under Willow had some sympathy for Boundless Mang. However, after all, she had had direct contact with Boundless Mang, directly scolding and directly exchanging fire. It wasn't that easy to dismiss her. Under Willow held her dagger and hesitated for a moment. "Actually, it's not that easy for you to deal with her now. Do you see the guy beside her?" Gu Fei said. "I see him." Under Willow's tone was filled with contempt. Along the way, Tsubasa Sakaratsuka jumped up and down beside Boundless Mang. How could Under Willow not know about Boundless Mang? From her point of view, she naturally tended to analyze Boundless Mang in some unbearable direction. That guy is also an expert. Don't look at how wretched he is. Gu Fei said, that group of people is quite strong. Yeah, they're all wretched. Birds of a feather flock together. In Under Willow's mind, Boundless Mang was undoubtedly repulsive. She wouldn't be surprised if any derogatory words were used on her. But just as she finished her comment, one of the wretched people happened to look in her direction. He immediately waved his hand and shouted, "Brother Zoe." Under Willow looked at Gu Fei in surprise. Gu Fei was also very embarrassed. Birds of a feather flock together, did he have to be one of them? Just as he didn't know what to say, Tsubasa Sakaratsuka also saw him and immediately led the crowd to welcome him. Under Fireball's gaze, the group of boys winked at him. In their hearts, they admired Gu Fei to the extreme. He could casually have a girl by his side. How did he do it? What's Brother Zoi's plan for tonight? Fireball asked. Oh, I'm going offline soon. Gu Fei replied. You're going offline now? Everyone was stunned. Does keeping the same schedule as the beauties help increase intimacy? This group of wretched people had already started to analyze Gu Fei's techniques for picking up girls. Gu Fei didn't know that this group of people was discussing him like this. He only felt that this group of people couldn't sense the tension in front of them. Under Willow held the dagger in her hand and glared at Boundless Mang. Boundless Mang didn't speak either. It just looked back calmly. Two girls stared at each other. Countless sparks flew when their gazes collided. A group of guys were discussing some techniques for picking up girls. What a strange scene. Well, everyone, continue playing. We're going offline first. Gu Fei dragged Under Willow and intended to leave. Under Willow sighed and didn't object. When Gu Fei suddenly pulled her out of stealth and told her about Boundless Mang and Silver Moon, she naturally understood the meaning behind Gu Fei's words. Regardless of whether she accepted it or not, it wasn't good for her to reject Gu Fei's feelings and make a move on Boundless Mang in front of him. I'll find another opportunity. Under Willow thought so and left with Gu Fei. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.